We begin our story with the shot of a book, which seems to be used as a record of sorts. The person leaving it behind does not think that it will do much good, but he feels that it will at least help him organize his thoughts. Now, our hero tells us the events of his past that led him to this day. It happened right after spring break in high school, when he was in class and staring off into space. At that very moment, a sudden surge of energy took over, and then our hero vanished from the scene. Now, he finds himself inside some kind of massive room, which is completely empty. As he tries to figure out where he has arrived, he is greeted by a fairy girl who says that this place is called Elysium. The fairy girl is the spirit in charge of this place, and her name is Epsilon. Our hero says hi, and introduces himself as Kurosaki Yoshitsune. The moment he says, the Epsilon completes some kind of registration, but he does not know what this means, so he gets confused. Now, there is an awkward silence, and Kurosaki has no idea what to say next. He even thinks about making some kind of small talk with the fairy girl, such as asking her about the weather and stuff. But that's not how he should be playing this. He can't believe that Epsilon is actually a spirit, because she is quite curvy for that. Kurosaki wonders if he should be saying such things to a girl he's just met, especially because he's never complimented women before in his life. Now, Epsilon wants to know if our hero has any other questions he would like to ask her. If that is not the case, then she will transfer him to a normal space. Kurosaki gets to thinking and wonders what the whole thing regarding his registration was. However, he takes too much time in responding to the fairy girl, so she begins the transfer process. He asks her to wait a second, but it's too late to make amends now. Now, we see the king of another world talking to Kurosaki and some other people, referring to them as heroes. Upon closer inspection, our hero can see that he and his classmates have all been summoned to this unknown place. He has no idea what's going on, and then he notices a knight standing in the room. The design of his armor reminds Kurosaki of the famous role-playing games he used to have back in Japan. He needs to check if this is real life, so he pinches himself to see if all is well. As expected, he is indeed in real life, and not in some kind of dream. While he tries to still digest what has happened to him, his classmates seem to be excited to be summoned as heroes. They even wonder if they will get some kind of cheat skills to survive in this new world. But then Kurosaki wonders if there can be so many main characters in this story. In light novels and manga comics, there's usually only one hero who gets preferred treatment, so Kurosaki has to see if that will also be the case over here. Now, a mage asks the kids to come this way because they need to assess their abilities. Some more classmates start to get hyped up, but Kurosaki only looks at them as suckers because they should not think that this will be an easygoing lifestyle. On top of that, everyone seems to be happy about this fantasy situation they've found themselves in. Nobody really seems to care about the dangers associated with this life. And then Kurosaki notices something else. There are no girls here even though his class was filled with them. Something odd is definitely going on, and then we shift to one of the boys getting appraised. Kurosaki learns that there are game stats in this world, and the boys summoned here are more like players, with some of them even having an additional field and a class. A boy named Watanabe is told that he is a mid-class hero with the swordsman class, and he seems to be delighted about it. Basically, those with a class are considered to be mid-rank, while those without one are typically low-rank heroes. It's Kurosaki's turn now, so he waits eagerly as he gets assessed, and then he sees a symbol in front of him. As per what the fairy girl had told him earlier, Kurosaki states that he has the ability to look at the foreign language of this world and instantly translate it in his head. If that is the case, then he is reading this symbol as an indicator that he has not been given a class. This means that he is a low-rank hero, and life is being very cruel to him already. Now, we see 5 other boys named Ito, Tanaka, Suzuki, Satu and Takashi, all of whom are also low-rank heroes with Kurosaki. This means that out of 20 boys, there are only 6 low-rank heroes, which is rather embarrassing for Kurosaki. Now, a cute and curvy maid leads the heroes to their mansion. But the one where the low-rank heroes are going to stay at is very old and almost broken down. Kurosaki and the others most definitely do not like what they see, and then he takes a look inside. The rooms are horrible as well, which makes this mansion look more like a prison than anything else. In comparison, the mid-rank heroes have gotten the exact opposite kind of treatment with an extremely fancy mansion. Plus, they also get a whole supply of cute and curvy maid girls, so it almost feels as if they have been given a ticket straight to heaven. The claim is that such luxuries are being given to the heroes in order to make them more motivated and competitive. But to Kurosaki, this is more of unjust treatment. The loser boys are taken to the cafeteria of their mansion, where they meet the head maid known as Sylvia. She is cute and curvy to a whole other level, but she is not here to address any intrusive thoughts. Instead, she is going to explain to the loser boys why they have been brought here. To put it simply, they need to conquer the dungeon below them. This is because the country, and even the entire world, is run on the concept of dungeons. Whether it's food, fuel, or any other kind of necessity, all of it comes from the dungeons. In short, Kurosaki has figured out that the people of this world want him and the other loser boys to go and fetch these items for them. Of course, they are trying to make it sound nice by saying the heroes must conquer the dungeon. But if we are to look at it neutrally, then these boys have been kidnapped without any regard and are now being forced to do hard labor. What's worse is that Kurosaki has heard that there is no way for him to go back to his original world, so he is stuck here forever. At least he is getting paid for this, otherwise the kingdom would have had to face an intense rebellion. Sylvia continues to explain how as the loser boys pass through the dungeon, they will gain points which can be exchanged for various items and services. The items may include strong weapons, armor, useful tools, or even an improvement in the food being served to them at their mansion. Of course, there is an even bigger prize in store for the loser boys, so Sylvia claps her hands and brings in a whole gang of cute and curvy maid girls. Sylvia explains that the big bumper prize is a personal and pure maid girl with whom these loser boys can do whatever they want. Kurosaki has realized that this is the biggest prize that is being used to tempt the loser boys. Even though he knows these maids are being used as bait, there's no denying the fact that he and the other boys are in puberty right now. This means that they have way too many intrusive thoughts going on inside their heads, which led to all of them saying yes to the mission without even batting an eye. Kurosaki admits that he has been considerably enticed due to the maid girls on offer. But that does not change the fact that the dungeon is going to be a dangerous mission for him and the other loser boys. As he lies down on his bed and considers everything that has happened, he states that he does not know how to fight at all. Sure, he wants a personal maid girl, but he will need to survive the dungeon in order for that to happen. Suddenly, he hears knocking on his door and wonders who it could be. He asks the person to come in, and it happens to be a cute and curvy maid girl named Anissa. She says that she has come here to take care of Kurosaki, which can only mean one thing to our hero. He realizes that the people of the kingdom want an answer from him and the other loser boys as soon as possible, and this would be the best way to do it. He knows this is trap, but since he has never been touched by a woman before, he lacks the power to block his intrusive thoughts. What follows is an intense and shady session with the maid girl, and then our hero learns that since the men of this world are not fertile enough, these girls come to work as maids to gain the seeds of the heroes being summoned here. This means he can do as much as he wants to these maid girls, and a week passes by like this. For what it's worth, Kurosaki and the other loser boys make sure not to skip out on training. The food isn't that bad either, so this is more of a comfortable life. However, it does beg the question if these loser boys are being turned into domesticated breeding horses. This also explains why only the boys were summoned to this world, and not the girls. Of course, they have also been busy getting freaky with the maid girls, and our hero is no exception to that. He gives the example of a maid girl named Rinny, who is a low-rank maid assigned to the low-rank heroes. They can do whatever they want to her, wherever they want, and as many times as they want. These things are obviously amazing to Kurosaki. But then he remembers that Rini and Anissa are both of the same rank. He starts to have fantasies about her while he is with Rini, and she is able to understand this instantly. Kurosaki worries that he has messed up here, but she says that it's fine because Anissa is cute. Rini then points out that Anissa also seems to like Kurosaki, so he should snatch her up before someone else does it. In addition to this, the compatibility with a maid girl increases when you engage in more intrusive thoughts with her, which means that Kurosaki will have a better chance of getting Anissa pregnant if he makes her his exclusive maid. The only way to do this is to go to the dungeon, so Kurosaki decides it's time to step up. The days of training have finally ended, and today, the loser boys will be stepping into the dungeon for the first time. They are to step on some podiums, after which flashes of light is to consume them as part of some teleportation magic. Kurosaki takes a look at his supplies and can see that they are meant only for low-class heroes. Some of the mid-rank heroes even make fun of him for roaming around with a stick and a wooden shield. They call him lame and state that his weapons are a perfect match for him since he does not have a class. All of this is just idle talk, and our hero tries his best not to let the words of others affect him. He takes a few steps ahead and then enters the portal. Kurosaki states that at first, he was really suspicious about everything, especially because he was taking the whole thing casually. However, now that he has a goal in mind, he is going to become a lot more serious about his mission. The goal is, of course, to make Anissa his exclusive maid, and he is going to earn so many points that he will be able to free her from her low-rank status. He clearly likes her, and if it so happens that she also likes him, then he is going to make sure that no other boy can have her. Now, Kurosaki takes a deep breath in and out, after which he sets out on his mission. It only takes a second for him to get teleported to the dungeon, and he is already getting an ominous vibe from the place. Kurosaki checks out the walls and learns that they are made of real stone. From the looks of it, it's almost as if he is in an actual role-playing game. The suspicious thing, though, is that it's just our hero over here, and none of the other boys have come to this area. This could mean that each of the loser boys have been teleported to different sections inside the dungeon. Kurosaki feels like this is becoming a bit too familiar to the games he used to play back in Japan, and he wonders if he is in some kind of tutorial. The moment he says this, he hears a voice asking him if he would like to begin his tutorial. Now, our hero thinks back to the fairy girl Epsilon, who instantly comes back to him and offers a brief history about the planet of Elysium. Basically, the civilization that controlled this world was far more advanced than the humans of Earth. But around 500 years ago, the entire civilization came crumbling down as it fought its last ever war. As expected, this ended in a global catastrophe. And Epsilon's word is as good as gold because she is the information terminal of this world. Of course, Kurosaki asks her how the existing people of this world have come to be if everyone else lost their lives to war. That's when the fairy girl explains that Elysium is not the name of this planet, but rather of a leisure facility which has been styled after a fantasy dungeon. This means that our hero has been summoned to a facility inside another world, and not the main world in itself. It turns out that some people had fled to this facility during the war so that they could enjoy themselves one last time. However, they were also able to use this dungeon to survive back then and even now. So, for 500 years, the survivors of war have been living inside this dungeon dome and are under the rule of a monarchy. All of this does sound interesting to Kurosaki, especially because of how society has still been able to function for so long over here. However, he is a bit doubtful as to whether this place was actually made for entertainment purposes. After all, it seems to have a lot of resources and facilities, so maybe it's more than a standard theme park. Epsilon explains to him that Elysium was built with the best technology the world had to offer in order to provide the best customer satisfaction. She also states that the system uses some kind of perpetual energy generator, which is why the power never seems to run out over here. The fairy girl looks like she is going to go off on some kind of lecture. So Kurosaki stops her before she can move any further. Epsilon wants to know if our hero has any other questions for her. So he brings up the point about summoning people from another world. The fairy girl states that heroes are summoned from the nearest parallel world in order to challenge their dungeons. At present, there is a setting called Endless, which is in the process of being executed. What's more is that heroes are considered to be dispensable because the system had never even considered repatriation after the summoning process. Kurosaki does not like the fact that a cute fairy girl, such as Epsilon, is saying such savage and shady things, especially when it heavily implies that heroes are simply being kidnapped and used as pawns in the games of some people inside a dome. Kurosaki asks this question to Epsilon, but she is unable to provide an answer to it. This is indeed a horrible system that even the Romans and their Colosseum would find a bit over the top. Anyway, since he can't help the new life he has been forced into, our hero goes about his business inside the dungeon. He comes across a slime monster and defeats it with ease since it is a weak beast. He was able to do this with his fists, and then Epsilon tells him that he has reached level 2 as a player. Kurosaki reveals that he managed to achieve this after defeating around 30 slime monsters, so it really is a lot of work. He makes sure to pick up the drop item, which is an energy gem, and then he comments that these slimes are so weak that defeating them feels like a day job. Suddenly, he comes across a treasure chest, and the fairy girl congratulates him because finding such an item on the very first floor of the dungeon is considered to be extremely rare. Kurosaki goes on to open the treasure chest, and he is blessed with an additional item. It looks like some kind of sword. But then Epsilon tells Kurosaki to proceed with caution because the treasure chests could also be traps. Our hero states that the fairy girl should really be telling him such things earlier on. But all's well that ends well. Anyway, Kurosaki takes a look at the requirements that have been given to him for earning the class of adventurer. He has fulfilled 2 of them by defeating slime monsters and opening a treasure chest. The final thing he needs to do is survive and come back from the dungeon alive. Now, he explains to us that while he did get the raw end of the bargain by not receiving a class upon being summoned, it was just a matter of sheer luck. There happen to be some types of classes that can be learned when a hero fulfills all the right criteria, just like Kurosaki did now. Kurosaki also tells us that he did not want to take the risk of random learning, so he settled on gaining a safer class, which is that of an adventurer. This class will make it easier for him to defeat the dungeon because he will be able to fight with weapons, use some magic, and also gain search and exploration skills. This is great for him since he is an introvert. But the problem is that adventurers are jacks of all trades and masters of none. This means that they are no match for a person who specializes in one particular field. Despite such a restriction, it does not matter to Kurosaki because he was never going to devote everything he had into clearing the dungeon. His current objective is just to make Anissa his exclusive maid, and if things go well enough, he would like to make her his maid wife as well. Now, our hero wonders how he is going to get back to the dome, so Epsilon explains that she can do it for him as long as he is not in combat or affected by any special statuses. It's super convenient for him, so he tells the fairy girl to do it this very moment. Soon enough, Kurosaki is back to the dome, and he heads to his mansion with Epsilon. It's night time, and the fairy girl asks our hero if he would like to become an adventurer class now. He says yes, and the request is completed in an instant. He does not feel any kind of change yet, but figures that he will only be able to see the difference tomorrow in the dungeon. There is one problem though, which is that his elephant is awakening his trunk a lot more than usual. Kurosaki really wants to get with a girl this very moment, and his intrusive thoughts seem to be working on overdrive. He hears some knocking on the door, so he goes to open it and finds both Anissa as well as Rinny outside. The maid girls both look frightened for some reason, but Kurosaki wants to know why they are here. Rinny and Anissa express relief over seeing him back, so he wonders if people had thought he lost his life because he came back so late. Rini says that if Kurosaki were to come back late, then he should at least inform her and Anissa once he's back. By not doing so, he will make them both worry about him, especially Anissa. Both the girls seem to be a bit embarrassed because they have exposed their feelings towards Kurosaki. But he could not care less about such things because his elephant is still raging. He grabs both his maid girls and brings them into his room, after which he locks the door to make sure nobody interrupts them during their shady activities. What follows is a rather intense session that allows Kurosaki to unleash the wrath of his elephant and his trunk. He wakes up the next morning to the sounds of sparrows chirping, but there seems to be some kind of problem. Despite going at it for so long the entire night, his elephant still seems to have water in the trunk. It's quite weird because even young teenagers don't carry this kind of excitement with them. Epsilon shows up to explain that this is a side effect of his level increasing. The fairy girl says that since Kurosaki has grown in terms of physical and spiritual strength, even his natural impulses have grown to a temporary level. She then asks our hero if he would like to use any suppression countermeasures, but he says no to them. Epsilon states that Kurosaki will need to be careful about this, because it could trigger a berserk mentality in him, which means that he will be in a perpetual state of intrusive thoughts. Our hero could also suffer from extreme aggression, so he will need to exercise caution moving forward. Now, we learn that Kurosaki is with another girl named Alice who can't see Epsilon, so he tells her to ignore his words and continue with their dirty business. After a heavy session with her, we move down to the cafeteria where everyone is having their food. Some of the boys are discussing how slimes are super weak and can be taken down with just one punch. Keeping this in mind, it feels as if the dungeon is like some kind of cakewalk. Of course, Kurosaki thinks that these boys are just getting carried away with the momentum of their new lives. As long as they don't get tripped up, things should be fine. But the loser boys are pretty much like the Three Stooges at this point. Ichi stays away from them, so Kurosaki can't figure out what his deal is. And then there's Tanaka, who just looks like he's given up on everything, although that is not really his fault. After all, not everyone is able to take the life of a monster, no matter how weak it is. Modern Japan never had such philosophies, so to take the lives of so many slime monsters can leave trauma inside people like Tanaka. Now, it's time for food, but the meal that has been given to Kurosaki is very basic. It's nothing like what was being served to him the previous week, so he asks what's going on. Anissa tells him that he was being given yummy food for the past week because he was training and learning about her world. This means that the treatment was basically to motivate the boys to do well during their dungeon training. It's a bit of a scam in Kurosaki's eyes, but he knows that he has to make Anissa his exclusive maid, so he figures he'll keep saving up for now. Now, it's time for the second day of dungeon diving, but our hero has already grown tired of whacking slime monsters. He wants to go to the second floor, but he does not know where it is, and can only hope to find an entrance while walking around. Now, Epsilon asks Kurosaki if he would like to enable auto mapping, and he says yes. The map shows a lot of empty spaces, so our hero wonders how big this dungeon really is. But the fairy girl can't answer that question because it is confidential information. Kurosaki is not impressed by her reluctance to answer him, but he understands that she must be under some kind of obligation, so he asks her how big the first floor is. Epsilon states that it is 100 meters by 100 meters, and it is called Evergreen. Kurosaki is a bit surprised to see that a dungeon has a name, but the fairy girl states that its design was based off the motif of bountiful nature. This makes Kurosaki wonder if Floor 2 will look different from Floor 1. But there is only one way to find out. It turns out that there are other dungeons such as Grand Blue, Last Heaven, Sun Scarlet, and Sky Forest, but the easiest one is Evergreen, so Kurosaki will focus on beating it first. With that, our hero locates an upward passage to the second floor and bounces his way up a level. Kurosaki is having a field day with the new skills he's picked up, and he even integrates them to make sure he can bounce off the walls. It's amazing for him, especially because he can now use the moves Accelerate and Leap. Of course, he feels that better names for these moves would be Control and Gravity, backed by Control Repulsion, which should help him perform all kinds of jumps. The problem is that he jumps so much that he starts to feel dizzy. Epsilon comes once again to explain that if Kirasaki's MP starts to run out, then he will start to feel dizziness and might even feel like throwing up. Our hero reminds the fairy girl one more time that she needs to say these things to him in advance. Otherwise, he will never be able to learn from his mistakes. Anyway, Epsilon states that Kirasaki will regain all of his MP once he levels up. Also, mana can recover over time as well. And we can see it when Kirasaki activates an invisible barrier to protect himself from a sneaky slime attack. Our hero starts to feel a bit better, and then he realizes that the mapping ability he just saw was his own skill and not Epsilon's. Then, he uses his Regen skill to heal his wounds. This is absolutely important for someone who is going on solo missions. Then, Kirasaki remembers that his stamina from the last night could have been due to the Regen skill activating. Plus, this skill affects those nearby as well, so it explains how the maid girls were also able to go all night without getting worn out. As he levels up, Kirasaki finally gains access to the standard storage box from another dimension. It's incredibly useful, especially if you have too many things to carry around with you. On top of this, all of Kirasaki's magical and physical abilities have improved by an impressive margin, meaning he is finally becoming more of a mid-rank hero. However, the free club weapon he got earlier has now broken down, probably due to it not being able to withstand Kirasaki's new powers. He decides to pull out the magic sword he got from the treasure chest earlier and uses it to slice down some slimes. It's an impressive tool for sure, but the issue is that it takes up a lot of mana while using it, so Kirasaki will have to be more careful. Epsilon agrees with his words, so he tells the fairy girl to take him back to the mansion so that he can go and get a backup weapon. She commences the logout procedure, and then Kirasaki heads over to the weapons shop, which deals exclusively with hero consignments. He checks out the massive variety of weapons on display and comments that he can find anything he likes over here. The shop owner shows up and greets Kirasaki, after which he asks what he can do for him. Kirasaki shows him the beaten-up club he had gotten at the beginning of his journey, and says that he would like to replace it. He also wants a fresh pair of shoes for some reason, and then the shop owner gives him some suggestions. He states that he does have iron clubs, but he would recommend a war hammer instead. The idea of such a weapon sounds cool to Kirasaki, so he is told to wait for a bit. Now, in the process of checking out all the items inside the shop, our hero becomes quite friendly with the shop owner. He reveals to Kirasaki that the other hero boys are actually huge jerks, and he is the only one who has been nice to talk to. The shop owner is also a soldier, so he states that he's not a slave over here, so he should be treated with more respect. Kirasaki can understand his frustrations, even though the soldier is not supposed to be complaining to another hero. He also reveals that Kirasaki is the first hero from this round of boys to come to his shop. Normally, such information should not be revealed to those who are coming from another world, because it basically proves that heroes are used as disposable pawns. Kirasaki is glad that he got some proof of these theories that were given to him by Epsilon, and he figures that work ethics are not valued in this dome. He then takes a look at his warhammer and likes it a lot. He picks it up along with a new pair of boots, and the soldier decides to give him fresh stock from the warehouse. He asks Kirasaki to wait at the shop for a bit while he goes and gets it, and our hero agrees. While he waits for the soldier to return, Kirasaki starts to hear some shady noises. As he pays closer attention, he can figure out that intrusive thoughts are being acted on somewhere. The source of the noise is a mystery door, so he goes ahead and opens it to find a rather shocking sight. This is when he sees that the girls of his class are engaging with the men of this fantasy world. It's almost like an assembly line, the way turns are being taken, and this is to raise compatibility. Of course, It's not like Kurosaki cares for any of these schoolgirls, because he had also just recently shifted to their class, and he comments that such things are just the way of the world. Now, the shop owner returns and catches our hero in the act. He laments the fact that Kurosaki has seen his own people being treated as slaves, but since he himself is not the most chivalrous person on the planet, he simply asks the soldier how the girls from Japan measure up to the girls from this dome. They then decide to have a group session, and it turns out that the girl is actually the soldier's exclusive summoned heroine. Apparently, the men from this world can buy girls that have been summoned from other worlds with soldier points. Since the men from the dome have low fertility, they try to raise their compatibility with girls from other worlds by engaging in intrusive thoughts with them as many times as they can. Kurosaki is made to believe that he was allowed to get it on with the shop owner's exclusive girl because he believed our hero would not be able to get her pregnant due to low compatibility. However, Epsilon revealed that this assumption was incorrect. Since both Kurosaki and this slave girl came from the same world, the chances of him getting her pregnant was actually a lot higher. It also looks like the heroine girls are put under some kind of mind control spell. But Kurosaki does not want to get into the details of it because it could cause problems for him. It's best for him to focus on aspects that directly impact him, so he decides to go home and get freaky with his maid girls. With that, he bids farewell to the shop owner, who has most definitely become his new buddy. It seems to be a comfortable life for Kurosaki, and then he figures that he will go to the dungeon again the next day. The next day, Kurosaki uses his new war hammer to the test and achieves a whole new level of power. He smashes through slime monsters as if they're nothing, and by the end of it, Epsilon congratulates him for reaching level 3. Sadly, our hero is growing tired of defeating slimes, and he wants to go down to the real second floor, not the one he thought he was going to after using up all his mana. At the same time, he worries that the monsters he runs into over there might be too tough for him to defeat. The fairy girl tells him that the monsters on the second floor are all at level 2, which means that they will have all the baseline stats of a player at level 2. Since our hero is at level 3, he can go ahead and give it a shot. With that, Kurosaki finally enters the second floor of the dungeon, and it looks like an open space. He is a bit confused as he can also see a clear open sky, so he asks if this is some kind of display on a screen. Epsilon explains that this is not some kind of illusion, and is actually real life itself. Starting with the second floor, all the areas will be public, so Kurosaki will need to be a lot more careful moving forward. He asks if this also means that he will be running into other heroes as well, which implies that it's possible for players to end each other in the process. Of course, it's not like Kurosaki wants to do such a thing himself, but he does have to keep such things in mind if he is to survive the dungeon. Now, he can see something charging at him, and it looks like a deadly monster. It's Kurosaki's first experience with a second floor monster, so he gets ready to tackle it with all he's got. The beast is shown to be an overgrown chicken, and it looks quite dangerous, but all it takes is one smack from Kurosaki's war hammer, and the beast is taken down with ease. What's even better is the fact that upon getting ended, the monster instantly turns into meat. Seeing this makes Kurosaki realize why the dungeon is considered to be the lifeline of the dome people. Epsilon shows up and explains that the second floor is filled with all kinds of monsters that can be used for their meat. Since he does not need to skin these beasts, Kurosaki simply adds the meat to his storage box. This floor is also filled with pigs, sheep, and cows, so there is a lot of meat on offer here. These monsters are not very strong, and they drop more energy gems than the slimes, so it motivates Kurosaki to grind harder than ever. Now, we move back to the mansion, and this time, we are looking at the one for the mid-rank heroes. We see a couple of boys talking about their friends Yamamoto and Nakamura who have said that they will not be joining them today. The reason for this is that they want to stay back and act on their intrusive thoughts with their maid girls. We learn that these boys are Kobayashi, who is a mage, and Katu, who is a priest. They argue about the need to do shady things with maid girls all the time, even though Katu does admit that it's an amazing feeling. The boys discuss how even in this mid-hero gang, there are sides being formed, with one side being the proactive group, which wants to clear the dungeon, and the other side being the good times group, which could not care less about what happens in the dungeon. Kobayashi seems to have a suspicion about the hero system because something is off about it. Katu asks what he means by this, but the mage boy is not able to explain it properly to him. It's like the heroes are misunderstanding something about their situation, or even being misled by the people of this dome. Katu thinks that Kobayashi is heading toward the conspiracy theory route, but the mage boy says that they should not complain about anything because they are getting food, shelter, and maid girls as well. It's a paradise for them, so there should not be any reason for them to risk their lives in the dungeons every single day. Katu now says that his exclusive maid is actually the daughter of a noble. It seems sincere enough for a noble family to just hand over their daughter this way to a hero in exchange for summoning him over here. However, Kobayashi says that this sounds a bit too convenient for them. After all, the people of this world, look, they're a bit too used to such things happening over here. But Katu tells the mage boy that he's simply overthinking it. He then says that Kobayashi might be homesick because he is missing his girlfriend. The priest boy says that Kobayashi should just forget about her, as she might already be cheating on him. The mage boy calls Katu a jerk for saying that, but Katu doubles down on his words by asking if he would even want to go back to Japan if he had the choice to do so. They can act on their intrusive thoughts with cute and curvy maid girls as many times as they want. But Kobayashi still feels that something is off. Anyway, Katu tells his friend to just focus on positive thoughts and earn as many hero points as they can get. New maids are going to be expensive, so they need to put in their best efforts. However, we learn that Kobayashi's girlfriend has also been summoned here and is being used as a slave girl by the prince. Now, we move back to Kurosaki, who has accumulated over 300 hero points due to his recent exploits on the second floor. It has only been one day of grinding for him, so he is glad he went over to this floor. Our hero's goal has been achieved now, and he can easily make Anissa his exclusive maid. Epsilon also congratulates him for getting what he wanted, although it is a bit anticlimactic. Kurosaki proceeds to ask his shop owner buddy about buying Anissa, so he gets the paperwork done as soon as possible. In a little bit, he will be getting the choker that will prove his ownership of Anissa, along with a ring that is paired to it. Our hero is very happy about this, so he decides to share some of his meat with the soldier buddy. He shows a massive steak and says that it can be shared with the other soldiers as well. The shop owner can't believe that it is of such a high quality and asks if it's okay for him to take it. Kurosaki has no problem with this because there's a lot more where that came from. The soldier buddy is extremely grateful to Kurosaki for doing this, and then he says that since Kurosaki will have to wait till the collar is ready, he won't have much to do. In that case, he asks him if he would like to go a couple of rounds with his slave girl, to which Kurosaki says yes without any hesitation. The soldiers enjoy the meat that has been given to them, but they feel like it's lame for them to get all this food without having to give anything in return for it. They eventually decide that the gift of meat should be repaid in kind. Once he's done with the shop owner's maid, Kurosaki is offered one of his classmates to keep as his personal slave. Her name is Shinano, and she is not popular with the soldiers because her soft pillows are not fluffy enough for them. Kurosaki does think it's a bit odd for him to get hold of a slave girl just in exchange for some meat, but he gives Shinano a trial run with everyone watching around him. Things work out, so Kurosaki becomes Shinano's new owner, but she does not talk at all, almost as if her intelligence level has been lowered. It leads Kurosaki to believe that she is being suppressed or brainwashed, but it's not like he can do anything about it, so he decides to take her back home with him. Here, he happily introduces Shinano to Sylvia, but she does not seem to be very thrilled to have her in the mansion. Kurosaki wants to know what's the issue with this, So the head maid says that a heroine has never been brought to this mansion before. Our hero asks her if she can do something about it, but she says that it's not really within her authority to do something like this. Of course, Kurosaki will not take no for an answer, so he makes an intimidating pose in front of Sylvia. She is left with no choice, so she does as our hero says, but only in exchange for some extremely shady sessions. Kurosaki eventually finds out that maids who reach the age of 30 without a master are driven out of the castle, so Sylvia was starting to get worried. Luckily for her, Kurosaki wanted to make her a maid wife right from the start, because he can't say no to a curvy body like hers. After tons of intrusive thoughts and shady activities, Sylvia gets to work and turns Shinano into a maid at the mansion. Kurosaki watches on as Sylvia explains to Shinano how to wash the dishes and her master's clothes, and it leads him to understand that Shinano can still follow orders, even though her mind has been wiped out. In that case, he can safely leave her to Sylvia and hope that Shinano ends up enjoying her life as his maid slave. Of course, there is something more important for Kurosaki to take care of, so he heads towards Anissa and tells her that he has something to show her. It's the slave choker along with the master ring, and it puts an expression of shock into Anissa's eyes. She asks Kurosaki if it's to make a maid girl his exclusive slave, but the look on her face worries our hero. He asks Anissa if she did not want to become his exclusive maid, and then it hits her that Kurosaki has his eyes on her. She confirms this with her master, and he says that is the obvious thing for him to do. This makes Anissa so happy that she has tears in her eyes now. As a matter of fact, the other maid girls also gather around her and congratulate her for becoming an exclusive maid. Kurosaki holds Anissa close to him and says that she only belongs to him now. She says yes without a doubt to her new master, and the other maid girls just stand there and watch. Sylvia is quite jealous of the couple, and so is Rinny. But it's hard to say what Shinano is feeling. What follows is an extremely shady and intense session, after which Kurosaki states that he slept quite well. He says that Anissa was really cute with him last night, and it felt good to get busy with just one girl. Harems are good, but sometimes you need to have an intimate moment as well. He then notices Anissa in her maid outfit cleaning the mansion, so he asks her why she is working. Since he has claimed her, she does not need to work as a maid anymore. She reveals that she does not hate doing maid chores, and since Kurosaki will be out in the dungeon the whole day, she will not have anything to do either. This way, she will keep herself occupied, so she asks her master if this is fine with him. He has no issue with this at all, but our hero does realize the need to make sure none of the other men have a go at his exclusive maid. Kurosaki goes to the cafeteria to announce that Anissa is only for him and no one else. But even after doing this, there are a few men who may not listen to him due to jealousy. Luckily, Kurosaki gives them some meat to win their favor, and it all works out for the best. However, there is one incident where the fat kid Tanaka tries to have his way with Shinano. He is one of the other low-rank heroes, so he is easy to forget, and he might have gotten confused or something regarding Shinano, even though she is also Kurosaki's exclusive maid. Fortunately, the soldiers came running to the scene and apprehended Tanaka before he could do anything to Shinano. The fat boy gets thrown into a prison for his shady actions, and Kurosaki does not seem to have a problem with that at all. Later at night, Rinny also tries to get our hero to buy her, but he makes her wait for it. Then, Epsilon tells Kurosaki that Shinano is not currently in her fertilization period, so she asks if he would like to have her magically fertilized. He says no and would prefer to suppress the fertilization to avoid any drama. The fairy girl explains how she can suppress this process by holding back the embryos before they could get implanted into the uterus. This way, Kurosaki does not have to worry about getting Shinano or any of his other maid girls pregnant. Epsilon keeps explaining how she goes about her fertilization tactics. But our hero is clearly more interested in his shady acts with the maid girls. There is one big issue, though, for Kurosaki, and that's the weekly status checkup. He fears that his class will be discovered, which will then have him promoted to a mid-rank hero. Of course, he has no desire to live inside the castle, as he is very happy with the way things are in the mansion. He also wonders how much money he would need to support 2 wives and any children that come from them. Kirasaki's dream life is to have a ridiculous number of kids and take care of them all once he grows old. Now, he goes back to the dungeon on his 4th day and finds a whole range of cows to slaughter. In this world, beef is considered to be more valuable than chicken or pork, just like in Japan. This is why Kirasaki decides to go for cows more than any other animal. He starts off his hunting process by throwing some rocks at the cows and bulls, which angers them to the point of attacking him. Then, he launches a mid-air movement combo to take all of them down within 1 second. He finishes the job with a slash attack, and this is all it takes to finish off the monsters and turn them into ready meat. Kirasaki admits that even though these cows and bulls are not that strong, they can still be dangerous if they are in groups. Of course, it won't be a problem for him if he is just careful and keeps his guard up. Epsilon shows up yet again and congratulates Kirasaki for growing to level 4 and learning the skill Adapt. He is happy to hear this, although Adapt just sounds like a passive skill which will help him adjust to his environment. He confesses that even though he does not have a combat class, he has just been learning boring skills, and it's making him annoyed. Now, Kirasaki comes across his second treasure chest and decides to analyze it first with his skill. After all, Epsilon did say that such chests could be trapped. Luckily for him, there is no trap in this treasure chest, and he gets a pair of jumping boots. He decides to try them on and give these boots a test run, after which we see him taking off almost as if he is about to fly. Our hero can jump a lot higher now thanks to these boots, and he wonders what would happen if he were to use a skill at the same time. Kirasaki gives it a go, but it leads to a rather excessive display of power, and he ends up crashing down. His acceleration has also increased by a lot thanks to the boots, and now he is on the floor with a pair of broken legs. It's actually quite funny to Kirasaki, because he had never faced such injuries, even when he was dealing with monsters. As a matter of fact, his greatest form of damage has come at his own hands, and it makes for an ironic situation. Having said that, it's not like Kirasaki can avoid using such amazing boots, because mobility is his trump card. Not only will the boots stabilize Kirasaki's air combos, they will also help him run away from any monsters that may seem like they're too deadly to fight. He knows that he can't just pass away and leave his maid girls alone, so at least Kirasaki looks out for his slaves. Now, one morning at the cafeteria, we learn that the low-rank hero Isekai'd was making Alice his exclusive maid. Our hero has already engaged in shady acts with her, so it does not make a difference to him, and he claps for Isekai'd with all his maid girls. Seeing Kirasaki with 4 other cute and curvy maids does seem to irk Isekai'd, and it's clear that he does not like him. Of course, our hero seems to be familiar with this because it stems from an introverted nature. Either way, he only wishes happiness upon both Isekai'd and Alice for their future. Meanwhile, at the mid-hero mansion, intrusive thoughts are understatements for the debauchery that is going on over there. The heroes have become addicts to a whole other level, and they discuss how they almost lost their lives while taking down a black cow monster the other day. It took 4 mid-rank heroes to finally defeat the beast, and even though it may not have been a final boss, it was still pretty tough. At the same time, we see Kirasaki defeating the exact same monster all by himself, which means that he is on an even higher level than the mid-rank heroes. After this, Epsilon congratulates our hero for completing the 2nd floor of the dungeon and gaining management rights to it. Kirasaki does not understand what management rights mean, so he asks if he has done something special over here. It could have to do with the giant black gem that dropped from the big black cow after he defeated it. However, the gem broke away as soon as it dropped because the monster fell on it. Now, Kirasaki had thought that the cow was just an alternate colored trash mob, but his diving attack was way too powerful, and he ended up taking down a boss. The name of this floor is the Rumble Pasture, and Kurosaki has been able to conquer it without really breaking a sweat. With that, the stairs towards the third floor of the dungeon open up and Kurosaki walks down in order to take a peek at what's waiting for him. He knows that he can use his magic sword more often now that he is at a higher level, so it should be fine for him. That's when he sees that the third floor is filled with giant carrot monsters. He is not allowed to rest, even for a second, as a scary scarecrow attacks him with all its might. It's a strong fighter, which makes our hero admit that the levels of these monsters grow a lot, especially when you move from floor to floor. The battle against this scary scarecrow goes from bad to worse as it starts spinning around in circles aggressively. It's almost as if it's some kind of cyclone, but Kurosaki is not one to back down from a challenge, so he charges up and then comes crashing down on his opponent. He proceeds to unleash a finisher move on the scary scarecrow, and is able to follow it up with a series of slash attacks. However, he has been fooled by the monster, as it is still alive and well. The scary scarecrow then pierces Kurosaki through his torso, and things are not looking good for him at all. Now, the monster prepares its own finisher move, which is a giant drill attack. Kurosaki feels that this might just be the end of him, but then he remembers that he has a whole harem of maid girls to take care of. That's all the motivation he needs to break out of this trap. And then he goes all out against the scary scarecrow. It's an absolutely brutal display of strength, as Kurosaki gives it all he has against his opponent. He goes from one attack to the other in a matter of seconds, and even takes out the monster's drill. This is still not enough to take it down since it is the final boss of this floor. But Kurosaki has the power of cute maids and intrusive thoughts on his side, so he continues the fight. He unleashes one more finisher move, and the slashes are good enough to finally defeat the scary scarecrow. It was a hard-fought battle for Kurosaki, as can be seen in the way he is barely holding on to his breath. But he has been able to emerge victorious. With this, he has also acquired the management rights to the third floor of the dungeon, which is called the Demeter plant floor. What awaits Kurosaki moving forward? How many more maids are going to become his exclusive slaves? And what exactly is the deal with the way people treat heroes in this world?
After Kurosaki is done with the scary scarecrow, he heads back to his base because he definitely needs to recover from what has just happened. He is barely able to make it back, but he eventually runs into Rizz, who is busy with the laundry. Our hero announces that he is back, but his shaking legs and bruised body make the maid girl panic. She rushes towards her master, asking him if he is all right, because his state is not too good. However, he says that he will be fine once he uses his regeneration skill. As of now, he is just tired, so needs a curvy girl to offer him her lap. Rizz puts her master's head in her lap and the two of them rest under a tree, which is a rather sweet and innocent scene compared to all the debauchery we have seen so far. Rizz tells Kurosaki that he should not go around pushing his limits because there are people who care about him now. Kurosaki is just happy to hear such an affectionate line from a girl, which is something he always wanted in his past life. Rizz further states that if anything were to happen to her master, then both Anessa and Sheena would be devastated. Rizz states that she too would be heartbroken if anything were to happen to Kurosaki, and then she tells him that he has finally become a complete hero. After all, not only has Kurosaki purchased Anessa as his bride, he has also made a heroine as his bride. This is a lot of sweet talk for a maid girl, so our hero wants to know what her objective is from all this chatting. Rizz states that she is aware of Kurosaki buying a bunch of low-rank maids. He confirms this, and then she bows down to him, begging her master to take her as his bride as well. She wants him to put a baby inside her because that would be the greatest blessing to her. Rizz swears that she will be useful to Kurosaki and is willing to accept any weird or shady preferences that he may have, even the ones that would make Drake and Diddy blush. Suddenly, Epsilon shows up and says that Kurosaki has acquired the management rights for Rizz. It's a rather odd for him to gain these rights, but such is the way for a man of culture. He does not recall receiving this message regarding Anessa or Sheena, so this could mean that Epsilon is evolving as a fairy girl. Of course, these are all theories, so our hero needs to just accept things as they are. It turns out that he had planned to make Rinna his wife anyway, so he might as well do it now. However, he can't shake off the feeling that this feels like a carefully calculated request. The bottom line is that Kurosaki wants Rinna to get added to his collection of maid wives, which at this point just seems like the shadow army of Sung Jinwoo from Solo Leveling. Our hero reveals that he had already spoken to the head maid Sylvia about this as well, and he had gained her approval for the same. After all, Sylvia had pretty much begged him the same way Rinna is begging him now. Of course, every man would love to be popular, but with fame comes its own set of responsibilities. After all, Kurosaki can't afford to bite the bullet now with so many babes depending on him. He was already being careful during his dungeon quests, but now he has to add one more layer as yet another maid girl becomes his wife. It's time to put Rinna to the test, so Kurosaki awakens the diddler within and begins his evaluation. He wonders how long Rinna will be able to hold out, especially because of his regeneration skill, which makes him an endless elephant water spiller. Rinna locks in for the performance of a lifetime and tells her prospective husband that she is ready for his shenanigans. What follows is an extremely shady display, and Epsilon comments that Kurosaki's natural MP regeneration rate is higher than the amount of MP that is needed to use the Regen skill on his elephant. That sounds just fine to our hero, because this effectively makes him the god of shady activities. In other words, Kurosaki can literally keep going until he gets bored. Rinna does not know who he is talking to as she can't see Epsilon, but there is no time to focus on a fairy girl as she is about to unleash her own kitty water. Rinna is pretty much done for, but Kurosaki says that there is no time to take breaks. They keep going at it and do unspeakable things as our hero tells us that he has not put a baby into any of his low-rank maid wives yet. The reason for this is that the women of this land have been afflicted with some kind of condition that makes it almost impossible for them to conceive. This is why it's needed to have heroes with good elephant water in this world. The women with low-class heroes would get expelled from the castle if they fell out of favor, and they would be sent to the castle town. On the other hand, women with mid-rank heroes had an easier time conceiving, which would lead them to become middle rank as well. Now, after a Supreme WrestleMania version of shady activities, Rinna is done for, and our hero gets the notification that she has been successfully fertilized. This also happens to be an extremely rare case of twins, meaning Kurosaki has really outdone himself this time. Epsilon is about to implant the eggs, but our hero tells her to preserve the eggs instead as he wishes to wait till his maid wives give birth. This skill effectively allows Kurosaki to control the fertility of his maid wives, but Epsilon warns him that excessive childbirth could lead to an increased risk to the mother's body. Kurosaki says that he wants Epsilon to continue preserving the eggs, and only to implant them when he tells her to. They can be done one by one in the order of which they were preserved, but Kurosaki needs to know if this is something that the fairy girl can do. She can very much do as her master commands, and she begins the process for Anessa, Sheena, and Rinna. Master management rights for the head maid Sylvia have also been acquired, but Kurosaki's physical compatibility with her is only at 50%. He still decides to go ahead with it, and Epsilon follows his instructions. Now that all the configuration is over, our hero decides to continue his fun time with Rinna. Her petite size does something to his intrusive thoughts, further indicating that Kendrick Lamar's next diss track may be directed towards Kurosaki. Now, our hero takes Rinna with him to get all the paperwork done so that she becomes exclusive to him. However, she is not capable of standing on her own, so he decides to carry her in his arms. This would have been extremely romantic had it not been for everything else in the story being so twisted and messed up. This entire time, Rinna's face was dyed red all the way down to the base of her neck. It made her look extremely cute, which awakened Kurisaki's intrusive thoughts once again. We move to the next day where the other low-rank heroes sit at the table and discuss heading over to the second floor of the dungeon. They feel they have become good enough to explore it together and increase their levels. After all, it does not make sense for them to just waste time on ending slimes all day. This is mainly because the boys want to buy a maid wife and gain exclusive access to them. Kurosaki is also at the bar enjoying a meal, and he comments that it's nice for the boys to have such high hopes, but they need to come back to reality. They have not farmed many points yet, neither have they been able to end enough monsters to gain the rank of warrior class. Either way, none of this matters to our hero, and he has no intention of blocking the dreams of these boys. It's time for him to leave, but as he exits, he notices Alice feeding Idu in a rather cute manner. She asks Idu how his food tastes, and he simply smiles because this is as good as life is going to get for him. Kurosaki is happy to see Alice and Idu getting along so well, and he greets them with a smile. Alice smiles at him, but Idu looks at our hero with anger, so nothing has changed from that perspective, although it does feel that he may have mellowed down just a little bit. It's Kurosaki's 6th day going to the dungeon now, and he decides to warm up for his next conquest. There will be a weekly checkup the next day, but Kurosaki does not want to get promoted at all. It would be best to remain at low rank while discussing with his wives what they should do about their future. He gets done with his warm-up and tells his maid wives that he will be off now, so they tell him to stay safe for them. Suddenly, Rinna has something to say, as she asks him if it is really necessary for him to be putting in so much effort. He is touched by his latest wife's concern, especially when she says that they can all find a way to live off the gems that drop off from hunting slimes. She also says that Kurosaki could just retire from the life of a hero and move to the town with his wives. They would all work together to support him, and they would not mind doing it at all because all of this will be for nothing if Kurosaki goes out there and loses his life. Anessa takes a look at Rinna and can feel her pain, while our hero is shocked by her behavior. After all, Rinna was painted as this girl who is just selfish, but in reality, she is actually quite caring. Kurosaki realizes that when he gets back, he will have to spoil Rinna a bit for being so concerned about him. He even says that living life like a house husband is not too bad, but it is also a pathetic way of life for a Giga Chad. Being a leech on your beautiful and hard-working wives can only be classified as beta male behavior, and our hero is not at all of that category. Either way, he thanks Rinna for being so caring and even pets her on the head to show his appreciation. He promises to work hard without putting in much risk, and the rest of his maid wives also cheer for him. He promises them all that he will be back safe and sound, because he would love to get into a group party with all of them once he's back. Kurosaki tells us another fact of his new life, which is that the energy gems dropped by monsters actually make up the energy source of this world. The people here were capable enough to handle slimes, which allowed them to continue collecting these gems till they powered up. However, unlike heroes, they were unable to gain classes or skills. Even though their physical abilities would improve, it was still a severe handicap when it came to clearing dungeons. In that regard, Kurosaki is glad that he is a hero. Meanwhile, we move to the walled kingdom of Elysium, which is in the middle of the Desert of Death. This kingdom is not protected by its wall, but rather by the environmental shield that was deployed around their ancient leisure facility, also known as their dungeon. The largest seafood wholesaler in the country had established its headquarters in the corner of this kingdom. As one would expect, the owner of this company sourced his products rather questionably. We move to this man now as he asks his butler for an update on a girl who has been summoned to the royal castle. The butler says that it's only been a few days since she had gone there, but the man angrily throws his glass. The Lord simply wishes to know if the girl has garnered the affection of a hero. The butler says there should be no doubts about such a thing because the young lady could possibly attract the attention of a high-rank hero. The Lord says that it would indeed be ideal if she got the seed of a higher-ranked hero, but as of now, it's the numbers that matter to him. In order to obtain these numbers, the girl must make sure that she as soon as possible. After all, the rights to this company need to be passed on to a rightful heir, which means that the Lord has basically sent his own daughter to the shady heroes. He is basically Baka but without the weird case because of the flawed justice system of this world. The reason this lord is so desperate for a rightful heir is because he needs to maintain the rights to the business if he wishes to enter the Grand Blue Dungeon. Frustrated, the lord tells his butler to get going because his business cannot remain shut forever. He then laments that he would not have had to deal with these rights issues if he had simply gotten a son instead of a daughter. The phantasmal dungeon known as Grand Blue possesses the Ripple Ocean, which has a lot of wealth in terms of seafood. In essence, this is what elevated the Lord's family to acquire so much money in the first place. So, it makes sense for the Lord to transfer the rights soon, otherwise his company will lose its access to the Ripple Ocean. Also, no one else will be allowed to gain those rights once they are gone. As he says this, we see Kurosaki defeating the boss of the Ripple Ocean floor inside the Grand Blue Dungeon. He gains the management rights to this place now, which means that his life is going to become a whole lot more interesting.
Our hero Kurosaki decides to catch us up from where we last saw him on Comic Guzzlers. Since he was done with the Evergreen Dungeon, he wanted to try out some other training grounds, and the Grand Blue Dungeon proved to be the perfect spot. He states that he was definitely shocked when he saw the second floor of the Evergreen Dungeon, but this was on a whole other level. He could even see the little island in which he came, so looping back was not an issue. Thanks to Kurosaki's adapt skill, he could also breathe easily underwater, which meant he didn't have to worry about oxygen either. What he did have to worry about, though, was combat. We see some fish monsters charging at Kurosaki, and he complains about the fact that he can't freely swing his sword, unless it's a part of some skill. Having a harpoon or something would have definitely helped him, but there's no time to be considering such options. So he simply flew up into the air and decided to check the dungeon for more items. Suddenly, a giant marlin monster jumped out of the water to attack him, but this was actually our hero's specialty, so taking it down was child's play for him. This monster ended up dropping a black gem, after which Kurosaki's fairy girl Epsilon showed up with another announcement. It had to do with the management rights of the dungeon, but Kurosaki is not too familiar with such terms. Either way, he decided not to worry about it and went back home to all his slave girls. We're back to the present now, as everyone is glad to see their master return to them. The girls take a look at the fish he's got with him, and then Kurosaki asks them if they know how to cook it. The girls look at the fish as if it's some kind of alien, and say that they don't really know how to prepare such a big creature when it's in its whole form. Our hero is a bit surprised that his maids don't know how to cook seafood, but they explain that fish is a high-ranking ingredient, which is why it is not available in the cafeterias of the low-rank hero mansions. This actually makes sense because Kurosaki does not remember having fish ever since he was summoned to this world. Some of the slave girls state that they have had fish before, but it was not fresh, so it did not taste very good either. There's also the case of having leftover fish that was dried, but in such cases, even jerky would taste better. Since this is the first time the girls have seen a fish this big and colorful, Kurosaki is pushed to make them taste good seafood. He takes the giant fish and thinks back to the cooking techniques of Japan. He has heard about the 3-piece fillet technique, but he does not know how to do it. Kurosaki wonders if he should just slice up the fish and hope for the best. But then one of his slave girls tugs at his shirt. It turns out to be Shinana, who is keen to slice up the fish with a blade in her hand. She does an excellent job, and this is also the first time we see her taking the lead on something. Her master and the other slave girls are amazed by her skills, so they clap for her to show their appreciation. Rinne and the others ask Shinana to teach them her cooking skills, and this leads Kurosaki to figure that she must have helped her parents in the kitchen back in Japan. Now, it's time to have some fish, and the meat is prepared nicely for a proper dinner. The girls have a bite and are simply taken aback by how tasty it is. Anessa can't believe that something like fish can actually be so tasty, and Sylvia admits that it is nothing like the fish she had before. Rinne also states that she might just like this meat more than any other form like chicken or beef. Shinana also seems to show her approval, although she is still not able to speak out loud. All this happiness reminds our hero of something, so we are taken to another flashback. Here, Kurosaki goes to the hero shop to present the fish he caught, and he surprises the shop owner with the size and freshness of it. He is in total shock, so he asks Kurosaki if he is actually a high-rank hero for being able to get such a product. After all, it's super expensive, but Kurosaki casually brushes it off by saying he just happened to get his hands on the fish. The shop owner figures he should not be asking too many questions, so he hopes Kurosaki will share this fish with everyone. He then asks our hero if he would like to join in on the shady activities for today, and the evil smile on his face suggests the only answer is yes. As the men partake in unspeakable acts with other maid girls, we see another girl showing up to the shop. She wants to check up on an item she had requested for before, but she does not see anyone at the desk. The maid girl does not know what she should do now, but then she notices the giant fish on the table. It is simply not possible for such an item to be present over here, so the maid girl is in total shock. She assesses the fish's skin and realizes from the texture that it has not been preserved at all. As a matter of fact, the fish seems to have been caught very recently, which is surprising to the girl because she is the daughter of the fishing company's heir. If she is here, then there is no way for anyone else to enter the Grand Blue Dungeon. The only other people who can enter this dungeon belong to the royal family, but the maid girl doubts they would allow other soldiers to enter with their permission. After some guesswork, she realizes that someone else must have gained the management rights to the dungeon. This does not make sense because the girl has never heard of anyone defeating the guardian of the Evergreen Dungeon. It's a behemoth who only passes on the management rights to the dungeon once it is defeated for good. It's actually so powerful that the last time it was defeated was 300 years ago. If the behemoth was actually beaten again, then there would have been a lot more fanfare about it. The maid girl realizes that she must tell her family about this, so that they can investigate the matter. Considering what's at stake, the family have no other choice but to deploy an infamous gang to do their bidding. They include 2 curvy babes who are known as the Canine Hunting Squad, or the Hound Witches. Now, we move to the low-rank hero mansion where it's been 14 days since the schoolboys were summoned into this world. We can see 3 low-rank heroes fidgeting around, and Kurosaki laments that they are being way too nervous for the appraisal that is about to happen. Our hero knows that being nervous about something is not going to solve any problems, so he simply waits while the standard checkups get done for the mid-rank heroes. Now, we see an odd device that looks like a modified mirror. It is used to carry out the status appraisal and can also perform changes in class. Of course, this does not matter to Kurosaki because he has Epsilon to change his class for him. Our hero also realizes one more thing, which is that none of the other boys from his squad seem to have a navigation spirit fairy like Epsilon. As a matter of fact, even the mid-rank heroes don't seem to have any fairies by their side, so he wonders if they had skipped their tutorials or something like that. It would not be a good idea for anyone to skip a tutorial, but anyway, our hero is just glad that he has Epsilon to guide and take care of him as he continues with his shady life. Now, Kurosaki takes a look at Itu, who is happily sitting with Alice and does not seem to care at all about the appraisal process. He is very happy with his slave Maid, and the happiness on his face almost makes Kurosaki jealous. Now, the door opens and Sylvia comes out to reveal that the appraisal process for the mid-rank heroes is taking a lot more time than expected. This does make the heroes more nervous because of the extra waiting time, but Kurosaki wants to know if there is some kind of trouble. Sylvia says that it's nothing to worry about because it's just that some of the heroes are not too happy with the results of the appraisal. There were 3 mid-rank heroes who got promoted to high rank, but there aren't only 3 fixed spots, so even more heroes could have gotten promoted as well. When a high-rank hero is made, there are lots of benefits to be had. First of all, there will be elite and innocent maid girls coming to your service, and in addition, there will also be various nobles and merchants that will become your patron, thus guaranteeing your future. Basically, if you become a high-rank hero, then you're pretty much going to become an elite as well. Kurosaki doesn't understand why a middle-rank hero would be upset over becoming a high rank, but that's none of his concern, so he goes ahead to get assessed. The results show his class level to be 0 and his normal level to be 3, which means that he is still a low-rank hero. Kurosaki calmly accepts the decision, but tells us that he did expect this to happen. After all, the results of this appraisal are false because he has used his disguise skill to keep his true stats hidden. If Kurosaki was shown to be a class holder, then he would have had to leave the low-rank mansion immediately. At the same time, if his level was too low, then he would probably get expelled from the castle for slacking off too much. Sylvia seems to be very puzzled by this, so she stares at Kurosaki, but he hopes she remains quiet till he explains everything to her later. Now, our hero wonders if things have gone as well as he would have imagined. He has a lot of maid wives, so if we keep that in mind, then maybe level 3 is too low for him. However, the appraisal boys are not too keen on checking for consistency as they are only concerned about what's there for lunch. It's pretty much the same over here as it is back on Earth when it comes to bureaucracy. Kurosaki does not need to worry about much for now, but then one of the low-rank heroes is promoted to mid-rank, and he seems to be extremely happy about it. He goes on a rant talking about how powerful he is, and he tells the others to address him as Sir. As expected, the other heroes are not at all happy with this because they took down the same number of monsters as the one who got promoted. They want to be assessed again, and it leads to high tensions. Seeing this makes Kurosaki realize that something similar might have happened with the mid-rank heroes as well. Suddenly, someone taps him on the shoulder asking for a favor, and it turns out to be Itu. As expected, Kurosaki gets creeped out, so he takes a moment to calm himself down from the jump scare he just got. He asks Itu what's up, but his heart is beating faster than what it was during his first time with a girl. Obviously in this case it's for different reasons, but for now, Itu is only interested in asking for a favor. He wants to learn the skill disguise as well, so he asks Kurosaki if he can teach it to him. Our hero is pleased to see this because it's the perfect example of an antisocial boy. However, he is also puzzled as to how Itu realized he was using the disguise skill for the assessment. That's when he decides to ask Itu if he heard that from a navigation spirit, to which he says yes. This makes our hero question the truth about everything, and he turns to Epsilon because she should have told him there were others like her. Of course, it could simply be a case of these fairy girls not liking each other. But then Kurosaki gets interrupted by Itu, who says that he only wants Alice. He has no interest in any other maid girls, and he finds it annoying how some of these maids always get in his way with Alice. These maid girls may go around calling Itu Master Hero in public, but then they go behind his back and make fun of him. Itu turns to the dark side as he wishes no other maid gets in the way of his romance with Alice. He would actually want these maids to drop to the floor lifeless, or even better, he would love to end all of them with his own bare hands. As expected, this is a bit too much for our hero to handle, so he tells Itu to calm down, even though he does understand why he is being so negative. Kurosaki eventually agrees to teach this skill to Itu, which makes him very happy, and he promises to pay back our hero. Alice also bows down to Kurosaki with gratitude, and then we shift to the bedroom where our hero engages in his regular shady sessions with his maid wives. Everyone is in attendance, so Kurosaki would like to go over everything again. His objective with his maid girls is to live a safe, peaceful, and enjoyable life together while also raising their kids. This means that it would be ideal not to get involved with any mid-rank heroes, as that could lead to a power struggle. Rinny agrees with her master, and then Anessa states that she has heard some very unsettling rumors. Apparently, there have been some mysterious disappearances among the mid-rank maids, which is quite alarming. This means being in the low-rank mansion is much better for everyone, but it also meant that the head maid Sylvia would need to be more patient. After all, if Kurosaki buys her, then the mansion will have to hire a new head maid, which he can't afford, as the status quo needs to be maintained. After all, Sylvia can help him and the others from getting kicked out of this section in case newer heroes got summoned over here. Epsilon further explains that the exact summoning period is unknown, so nobody can accurately predict it. There's also the fact that when a summoning target is spotted, then the summoning is triggered only when there are 30 other people in his vicinity, and all of those people also come along with him. This is a bit disturbing to Kurosaki, but it makes perfect sense. After all, high school students have a long life ahead of them, and are always found in large groups during school hours. Sometimes, older people in crowded trains are also summoned, but they don't have as much use as a younger stallion. Kurosaki asks Epsilon if this would be a problem because if so many people get summoned regularly, then it would make the headlines instantly. The fairy girl states that every summoning is done from a parallel world chosen at random, so it is not a problem at all. However, our hero argues that a lot of care and attention have gone into these mass kidnappings, so things are not as simple as they may seem. Our hero believes that it would be better to destroy this kingdom, but he does not want to do it himself as he just wants to enjoy with his maid wives. Rinny then states that even the children of unaffiliated heroes get money from the kingdom for a short period of time. That is not the case with a low-rank maid like herself, so she would simply be grateful to get pregnant. Kurosaki tells Rinny that she needs to value herself more because her practical thinking is very useful. After all, his long-term plans didn't just involve shady acts and romance. He also thought a lot about money and finances, which is why he will need a girl like Rinny to help him out. There is a Hero Protection Institute in place for such things, but it is hard to say whether that would be a good thing for our hero or whether it would simply put him in further danger. Now, the girls mention management rights, and this grabs Kurosaki's interest because he's heard that term before. Now, he learns that extra rewards can be earned by taking down the bosses of the dungeons, also known as guardians. This is essentially what management rights is supposed to mean, and then we learn that this is what unlocks the dungeons in the first place. These rights allow people other than heroes to enter their corresponding floors, and with this permission, normal citizens can gather food and other resources from the dungeons. This is essentially how the kingdom has been able to survive for so long. Now, we realize that the various floors of the Evergreen Dungeon are rich sources of food, and the kingdom will never yield them under any circumstances. So, if there are any heroes who secure the management rights to these floors, then the kingdom will pull out all the big guns to secure them. Since our hero has management rights as well, he is slowly starting to see why the kingdom keeps summoning heroes over here. He confirms once again that in order to secure these rights, he will need to go against guardians who are supposed to be very strong. The girls confirm that these monsters are at a much higher level than anything else, which is troubling for our hero. After all, he had to endure a lot just to defeat the Scarecrow monster, and if there are guardians stronger than him, then it will be a serious pain for Kurosaki. Our hero wants to know more about these management rights, So the girls tell him it's possible for the hero to pass down these rights to the children he plants into this world's women. If they do this, then the hero loses his rights, but can gain them again if he beats the guardian again. Rinny adds that she has heard a rumor of certain floors and dungeons only being restricted to royalty and special rank heroes. Due to this, the royal bloodline is trying to monopolize their own seed. After all, these rights were earned only by the heroes themselves, but the kingdom is messing things up due to their own greed. Now, in order to get things in order, Kurosaki tells us that if he has to become a high-rank hero, then he will have to leave behind his maid wives. Not just that, he will also have to become a seed factory for the nobles. Plus, he will most likely be asked to go into the dungeons again and again so that he can gain management rights to other dungeons for the nobles. This is more than enough for Kurosaki to declare that he will not do anything to stand out or be recognized by the people of this world. He will simply hunt down the easiest guardians and then pass the management rights of the dungeons to his children. On this note, Sylvia experiences a massive explosion and she gets fertilized by our hero. Now, Kurosaki is asked if he would like to pass down the management rights of any of his dungeons to the child inside Sylvia, but this has become a bit confusing now for him. Before we can get any further explanation on this, we see Kurosaki in the middle of an open field. He has his weapons and is looking around for a bit and he finds a bull. However, this is no ordinary bull, but rather the guardian of the rumble pasture, known as Cannibal Pass. This beast has a scary ability known as the Evil Eye, which has the ability to paralyze its target within sight. Of course, since Kurosaki is a solo player, this final boss is his natural enemy. Normally, this would be a tough fight, but since our hero can fight in the air, this guardian gets reduced to nothing more than beef stew. One slice is all it takes for him to defeat the bull, and then the black gem drops, which means he is ready to take the management rights to this dungeon. Now that he has done this, the other rights holder would have lost his stake in the dungeon, so the kingdom will need to summon someone else to come and take those rights back. There's also the case of rights being transferred down to children, and since Kurosaki has become totally familiar with the game now, he has decided that the rights to the rumble pasture will go straight to Anessa's tummy, meaning her child will get these rights. Of course, Anessa's kid has been kept on hold, so this is more like an advance booking for when she does get pregnant. Now, the maid girl does not know of the pause effect caused by her master, and he has no intention of revealing it to her either. Next up is Rinny, who is being given the Demeter plant dungeon rights. She happily accepts the gift, but is a bit shocked that her master has been able to gain the rights to so many dungeons. As a matter of fact, he himself is quite shocked that he was able to achieve this, but then again, it's because Epsilon decided not to include the most important part of the explanation. The girls have no idea about the fairy girl, but Kurosaki also decides to leave it at that, and then he moves to Shinano. He wants to give her the rights to the Ripple Ocean dungeon, but the other maid girls are alarmed by this, so they ask him to stop joking around. Our hero does not understand why his slave girls are being so paranoid about this, so they explain that the Ripple Ocean is the first floor of the Grand Blue Dungeon, which is a legendary entity. Only a high-rank hero was able to clear the dungeon's first floor, and that too, a long time ago. It was thanks to these rights that the Ely Shound family gained access to the dungeon floor, which allowed them to harvest the marine life there. This led to tons of revenue via circulation in the market, but there was only one set of rights which could be passed down to their family bloodline. Now, Kurosaki realizes that he is going to face a lot of headaches because the rights to this dungeon gate are in high demand. He then stops from passing the rights to Shinano, and he tells his maid girls to keep him having these rights a secret. Now that our hero knows who has a stranglehold on the fish market, it makes sense for seafood to be considered a luxury over here. Unfortunately, he did not know any of this before handing over the fish to the hero shop, which means he may have just ruined his own plan. He hopes that all will be well because it was just the one time, but we quickly learn that all is not well as we shift to the hero shop. The shop owner has a blade pointed right at him by the Hound witches and their boss. The boss is a weird man in a robe, and he wants to know from where the shop owner got the fresh piece of fish. Of course, the shop owner does not want to sabotage Kurosaki, so he tries to plead ignorance by saying he has no idea about any fishes. He also wants to know who these people are because of their strange outfits. So one of the girls brings out her whip and smashes it into the desk to completely destroy it. The shop owner is just about able to dodge this attack, but he realizes that he is dealing with the power of two female heroes. The shop owner says sorry to Kurosaki and then decides to reveal the truth about the fish to these evil goons. Now, we move to our hero who is planning to get some more management rights. He will continue to keep the rights that may prove to be troublesome to himself, and states that he will go to collect the rights to the Demeter plant floor once more. Kurosaki also considers going to a new floor called Agriland, because this way, he will be able to assign the rights to these dungeons to both Shinana and Sylvia. After all, it is always good for his maid wives to have some kind of insurance if anything were to happen to him. Rinny gets worried by this kind of talk because it suggests that her master might just lose his life. He tells her that it's just for insurance, and he will make sure that he does not do anything too reckless. However, at the same time he tells us that in the event of his demise, his maid's eggs are set to implant by themselves. This will allow them to survive via the aid provided by the kingdom, but of course, he does not want to make his maid wives worry for him. Before he leaves for his mission, Rinny tells him that the rights to the outer layer of the Last Heaven dungeon are all passed down by the royal family. This is news to our hero, so he asks about the Sky Forest and Sun Scarlet dungeons. However, his maid girls don't know anything about these dungeons, so he will need to wing it solo over here. Kurosaki figures that regular people may not know about such dungeons, or perhaps they are being kept as a secret from them by the kingdom. Now, we shift to an apocalyptic city scene where a strange man stands atop a broken building and declares that he has arrived inside the legendary Last Heaven dungeon. Since he is first in line for the throne, only he is allowed to set foot over here. The man walks around, looking for a trinket, and then he comes across what looks like a broken-down camera. He decides to use this as proof of him completing the dungeon, so that he can ascend to the throne smoothly during the succession ceremony. Even so, he considers this to be a waste of time and decides to head back to his mansion so that he can continue to spread his seed. It might be an obligation for someone of his stature, but at the same time, he does not mind engaging in shady activities. We then learn that when female heroes are summoned from another world, they get to be examined by the royal family first. The sad truth, though, is that these poor girls are nothing more than livestock for the men of this world. After these female heroes give birth to a royal successor, they are given a royal grant. Of course, it is definitely convenient to have such cute and curvy babes to do shady things with whenever you want, and the prince states that the exclusive girl he has is particularly great. He starts to think of all the things he would like to do to her once he returns, but then he comes across Kurosaki all of a sudden. This is a very random moment, and our hero does not want to take any second chances, so he launches a direct hit at the prince without any hesitation. This is more than enough to send the prince flying away, but our hero laments that he has attacked someone out of a mere reflex. Upon closer inspection, he notices that this man is not dressed like a hero or a random citizen from the kingdom. This makes him remember what Rinny had told him about only royalty being able to enter this dungeon. That means the person he has attacked is from the royal family, but even then, Kurosaki wonders if such a useless person can ever come from a royal bloodline. He had gotten Epsilon to check on the requirements for entering the dungeon, and she managed to set him a warp gate. This allowed Kurosaki to be sent to the Last Heaven, much to his surprise. This makes our hero think about his visit to the Grand Blue Dungeon as well. After all, only a person who is able to defeat the Behemoth Guardian can enter that dungeon. However, Kurosaki had not beaten the Behemoth, and he was still able to enter the dungeon. It leads him to wonder if the information given to him was wrong all along. Maybe there is a bug in the leisure facility, but then Kurosaki takes a look at his fairy girl and figures it would be best not to question her knowledge. After all, she might just give him a lengthy answer which he won't be able to understand. On that note, our hero realizes that this is not a very big problem for him. As long as he doesn't get sick of visiting so many dungeons, he should be good to go. At the same time, he does not know what to do with the prince he just knocked out. Kurosaki states that the only sensible thing to do in this situation would be to take all of the prince's belongings. While he's at it, he decides to play a little prank on the prince as well, and we see it later when the prince wakes up. He does not seem to have any clothes on, but he does seem to remember bumping into someone. We can see that Kurosaki has done quite the number on his target as he has lost his hair and has some weird markings on his face. The prince does not know what to do here, but he does feel that he should hold off on all his shady activities for now. After all, it is quite shameful for someone of royal blood to be without his clothes and also blacking out. He then tells himself that there is no way for anyone else to be here apart from himself. This is because he is the only person with rights to the Last Heaven dungeon. Of course, that is quite far from the truth as we see Kurosaki defeating the guardian of this gate with ease. With this, he gains the management rights to the happy set floor of the Last Heaven dungeon as well. Of course, the battle is not over with just defeating the guardian because there are lots of other enemies to fight. On the happy set floor, some robots show up stating that an intruder has been spotted. Due to this, they have been given an automated order of exterminating the target. The only problem for them is that the target they are approaching is none other than Kurosaki himself. Our hero has equipped himself with a unique kind of weapon, and he uses it to shoot at the robots. One shot is all it takes to completely wreck the robots, and their combat systems get compromised due to the critical damage. Now that Kurosaki knows what he can achieve with this weapon, he goes ahead and destroys all the robots coming at him. He states that the Cosmo gun packs a massive punch and is proving to be a worthy drop item. Then Epsilon pops up and tells our hero that he can turn his weapon into a sword by using a trigger. Kurosaki is amazed by the wonders of technology in this world, and he goes ahead to have an absolute blast with his new sword weapon. He slashes through the robots as if they are made of bread, and is able to go through an entire army with minimum effort. The main advantage of sword mode over here is that Kurosaki can hit targets that are as far as 10 meters away. On top of that, his Cosmo sword has a really high attack power and does not even use up any of his mana points. Considering all of this, it pretty much looks as if our hero is playing on cheat mode now. Either way, he is happy with his new weapon, so he gladly accepts it. However, the danger is far from over as there are more robots charging at him with their weapons. These tech monsters keep coming at Kurosaki, and he does not have the time to engage with an endless army of robots. Our hero asks his fairy girl if she has the ability to take him out of the dungeon even though he is currently being attacked. She says that there is sufficient distance between Kurosaki and the robots for her to execute the transfer, but she asks her master if he is actually done exploring the dungeon. Kurosaki says he is indeed done here because there is no point in exploring the dungeon if the robots keep attacking him for no good reason. Even if he flies in the air, he is not safe from the weapons and lasers targeted at him, and the worst part is that these robots don't even drop any kind of food items, although that should have been obvious from the start. Now, our hero thinks about having a seafood rice bowl for the first time since he's come to this world, so a better bet would be to clear out the Grand Blue Dungeon instead of this one. Epsilon gets where her master is coming from, so she performs the transfer move on him. Kurosaki bids farewell to the dungeon and says that he does not intend on coming back here anytime soon. Now, we move back to the low-rank hero mansion where someone is lingering outside. It's none other than the daughter of the Hound family, who is currently looking for Kurosaki. After all, she knows that our hero was the one who gave the fish to the hero shop, so she needs to find some answers. She does not know how he got his hands on the fish or where it could have come from. But the more she thinks about it, the less it makes sense to her. There is no way for a low-rank hero to get his hands on the rights to the Ripple Ocean because he would not even be able to enter the Grand Blue Dungeon in the first place. The merchant maid believes there must be some kind of scheme going on, so she needs to learn more from Kurosaki herself. Of course, there is no way for her to deduce the truth through her own theories, so she must verify the facts with her own eyes rather than listening to the fake media. She is aware that she should not be doing something as risky as this, but then again, the Hound witches are not really known for their subtlety when it comes to investigations. She takes a look around the cafeteria at first, but there is no mention of fish in the menu. Once again, the maid girl realizes that a smart man would not publicly display such a rare item, so she goes to check the kitchen area. We can see that Rinny and Anessa are already over there, and they are cooking up a meal for their master. The maid girl wants to ask them about the fish, but she needs to figure a way to do it indirectly. However, before she can move ahead any further, a creepy hand comes at her from behind and grabs her. The maid girl lets out a scream, and it alerts Rinny and Anessa from the kitchen. Rinny goes to take a look at what's going on, but when she peeks out of the door, she realizes that the maid girl has been caught by the loser boys Suzuki and Takahashi. Our heroes' wives are both aware that this is rather unfortunate because those two losers started to work a lot harder after their buddy Satu became a middle-rank hero. The Ili Shaun family's daughter is not thrilled to be with such low lives, but such is the way of this world. She suddenly hears the maid wives greeting their master, so she decides to go and meet him, but then she gets grabbed for another session. Kurosaki can hear the commotion outside and comments that the loser boys are having a party with the free maid. He is happy that they are feeling motivated, but at the same time, he will not spare them if they decide to go for Sylvia, who cannot be his exclusive maid as she has to remain the head maid of the mansion. Kurosaki unlocks his demon mode, so Rinny has to calm him down by saying the loser boys still know who to target and who not to target even when their intrusive thoughts have reached max level. There's also the fact that the other free maids go to the loser boys whenever it seems like they might go for Sylvia. Keeping this in mind, it does not look like the head maid will be attacked by the loser boys for now. This reminds our hero about Tanaka, who had tried to attack Anessa and got locked up for it. He was supposed to be getting out soon, but Kurosaki would prefer it if he stayed locked inside. We won't really hear about this character again, so our hero pretty much forgets that such a boy even existed. Anyway, it's time to get down to business, so Kurosaki presents a gift to Shinana, which consists of the management rights to the Rumble Pasture. Shinana usually does not really react a lot to anything, but when the rights get transferred to her belly, she does feel something odd. She holds her tummy and rubs it a bit, which makes Kurosaki a bit curious. He takes a look at his maid girl and believes that she is probably feeling fake emotions. It does make Kurosaki a bit sad, even though he has mostly forgotten feelings of sympathy due to the cruel nature of this world. Epsilon tells him that the procedure to suppress Shinana's feelings has already been completed, so if she were to nullify it, this would cause a lot of damage to her spiritual body. The fairy girl does not recommend going ahead with such a technique, but she still asks her master if he would like to proceed with it. This is extremely risky, and our hero does not want to destroy Shinana's spiritual body, so he asks Epsilon if there is a way to simply reverse what had happened to her earlier. The fairy girl states that once the procedure for suppression starts, it usually takes about a week to fully take effect. This is a problem because by the time Kurosaki had met Shinana, she had already been in her suppressed state for over a week. Effectively, this is her default state now, so Kurosaki really needs to think hard about what he wants to do with her. After some careful consideration, he decides that he will not do anything that may harm his maid girl. Plus, she does seem to be relatively happy in the present, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, Epsilon reveals that even though Shinana is in a suppressed state of intelligence, when she is not obeying orders, she does seem to demonstrate a priority for seeking out elementary consciousness. This means that right from the start, Shinano has had positive feelings of goodwill towards her master. Of course, Kurosaki doesn't take this too seriously because he knows that being with him is just marginally better than getting attacked by the shady men of the mid-rank mansion. Now, it's time to see things from Shinano's side, so that we can understand how she is truly feeling behind her mental suppression. We see her in the middle of a shady session with Kurosaki, and she seems to be liking what's being done to her. Shinano tells us that even though she got caught up in this horrible kidnapping scam of being summoned to another world, she is grateful that she has ended up with Kurosaki. She reveals that when she was in the real world, she could only watch our hero from afar and was not able to speak to him freely. Now, she achieves an explosion and tries to form a soul contract with our hero to free herself from her suppression, but she fails again. The probability for success is pretty much the same as winning a lottery, but it's fine because her master has promised to be by her side forever. Now we learn that even Shinano has a spirit navigator by the name of Theta, and she had instructed to him attempt the soul contract infinitely. Due to this, she believes that her wish will eventually come true. Now, we go to a flashback in her original world of Japan where everyone is in school and is trying to figure out their classes. Shinano is also here, and while she comments that it's nice to be with her friends, she is also with the boy she likes to call her boyfriend, who is none other than Kurosaki himself. Of course, she gets teased by the other students for feeling this way, and she tries to brush it off as nothing special. However, her friends continue to tease her because her face is way too easy to read. They consider spreading some rumors to attract Kurosaki's attention, and at this very moment, he passes by Shinano. She is not able to say anything to him, so her friends scold her for not being able to make the first move. One of Shinano's friends, known as Suzu Ran, tells her to act fast, otherwise some other girl will snatch Kurosaki for herself. She then heads to class and tells Shinano that it would have been great if the both of them were in the same class. She refers to Shinano as Big Sis, and this makes her emotional. Sadly, it was after this moment that the mass summoning happened, and Shinano found herself inside a cube room. Suddenly, she hears someone coming from behind, so she asks who it is. The being welcomes her to Ili Shaun, and he is revealed to be a hamster named Theta. He reveals that he is the navigation spirit who has been assigned to Shinano. Can't believe that the hamster is able to talk, but goes ahead to provide her real name, which is Kanano Fujiki. Theta completes her registration after hearing her full name because that is necessary to bond with a navigator spirit. He then tells Shinano that if she is not registered, then the game will start in hard mode for her. This would prohibit her from gaining skills and experience points, but Shinano has no idea of what all this even means. She wants to understand everything properly, so Theta suspends the transfer to the normal space. This allowed Shinano enough time to learn about all the shady things she was going to experience in the world she was being summoned to. Once she did get transferred, she was forced to wear a slave collar, as was every other girl. This was when the shady prince from earlier had his way with her. After this, Shinano and all her classmates were handed over to the soldiers for daily shoddiness. It was not a pleasant experience, but she did manage to achieve something important. On day 5 of the summoning, Shinano used her hero skills and Theta's powers to summon a duplicate of herself by using the skill Copy Doppel. Basically, before her thoughts became completely suppressed, Shinano was able to detach her external consciousness from her main body. However, she could still not stop the shady acts being done to her main body, and this continued for days on end. Her classmates were not spared either, but Shinano was being monopolized now by a certain Drake fan. Things got so bad for Shinano that she wanted to end him, as monopolizing was not allowed when it came to female heroes. Even the man's comrades hated him, but that's what you expect from a ditty enthusiast. Now, we learn that usually only one egg is ovulated per month, but with a certain magical potion, multiple ovulations can be induced. Shinano needed to make herself conceive, but it had to be with the right man. And that was when she finally met Kurosaki and experienced the best explosion of her life. This led Shinano to do whatever she could to make sure that she would get fertilized only by our hero swimmers. This would be tough because she already had the diddler's fertilized egg inside her. But Shinano did not quit and went against all the odds to make it happen. After trying multiple times over the course of days, Shinano finally managed to succeed by removing the diddler's egg and accepting Kurosaki's fertilized egg. This made her extremely happy, and even though it was a desperate situation, she managed to get the result she so badly wanted. So at this point, it did not matter who would violate her because in the end, she would only give birth to Kurosaki's baby. In total, she was able to preserve 10 eggs of our hero, which meant that she could have his children for as long as 10 years. Then, of course, she was handed over to Kurosaki as his wife due to the mischief of another Drake fan who annoyed the diddler. The point Shinano is trying to make to us is that it does not matter what she might seem like on the outside because she is quite happy to be with her master on the inside. The horrible past she had to endure does not matter to her anymore because Kurosaki embraces her gently and treats her right. Now, we are back to the present where we see another confirmed implantation, but Epsilon tries to reject the eggs. That's when Theta shows up and tells Shinano's external consciousness that he has stopped Epsilon's moves, as he is a higher-ranking spirit. So, if Shinano wants, then she can give birth to this baby as well. This makes her wonder if her master also has a navigation spirit, but that does not matter to her because she currently has 30 fertilized eggs inside her, not just one which our hero told Epsilon to preserve. With this, Shinano's spirit's role is about to come to an end, with the soul contract being the only thing that's left for her to do. If she wins and gets registered in the management system as Kurosaki's bride, then nobody will be able to separate them. There's also the fact that our hero has transferred management rights to her baby, which makes her feel his love even more. Shinano then tells us that she truly loves her master and loves doing shady things with him. So she is glad that she was summoned to this world. Basically, she is telling the keyboard warriors not to act high and mighty without hearing her own words first. Now, it's time to get back to the actual action as we find ourselves inside the Evergreen Dungeon's 3rd floor, known as the Granary Manor. We can see Kurosaki facing off against a giant beetle monster which is the guardian of this floor. He gets ready for combat, but it turns out to be an extremely easy win for our hero because of his Cosmo gun. With this, he acquires the management rights to the Granary Manor floor as well. Kurosaki laments that this was not an exciting match, and it's actually a bit embarrassing for a guardian not to have long-range attacks. As he collects the black gem, our hero also states that guardians respawn as quickly as a day, so he would like to target them more often for the experience points. Of course, he would not want to fight the scarecrow monster ever again because it took him a lot to defeat that creature. Kurosaki's current level is 8, which means that his physical enhancement has hit its limit, but his HP barrier value is still rapidly increasing. However, the lack of attack skills is still a problem for our hero, so he just goes ahead and stores his items in his warehouse skill. Now, Epsilon shows up and reveals to Kurosaki that if he reaches level 10, then he will be able to acquire a 2nd class. If he is able to meet certain conditions, then he can also have a class change, but all of these terms are not making sense to him at all. Kurosaki does not know what the long-term effect would be for class changing, so he wishes he had a strategy guide or a Wikipedia page to help him out in such situations. For now, his best bet would be to level up 2 more times and then take a decision accordingly. Since he has gotten the management rights he needed, it's time for our hero to go back home. But before going to the mansion, Kurosaki wants to visit one more place. Basically, he wants to eat a bowl of seafood rice, so he wishes to gather the ingredients for it from the Grand Blue Dungeon. Our hero then changes the destination of the gate transfer and finds himself on top of the Great Sea. It's time to start collecting the ingredients like tuna, but before Kurosaki can do that, we see someone else appearing before him. It's a soldier who tries to swing his sword at Kurosaki, and he screams that he wants this foreign man to meet his end. However, he clearly seems to be lacking in brains as he misses his strike in embarrassing fashion without Kurosaki even needing to put in an effort. The idiot soldier screams at our hero for dodging his attack, but then he falls straight into the ocean as he does not have any flying abilities. Kurosaki is a bit confused by what he has just seen, so he confirms with Epsilon that the dungeon's teleportation circle connects to the same location if it is used right after someone else transfers there. This idiot soldier seems to have followed our hero using the same method. However, the problem for the idiot soldier is that this place is the Grand Blue Dungeon, which means that it is mostly covered in water. Since we are currently in the second floor, which is the Ocean Currents Marine, there is no land here at all, unlike the first floor. At the same time, the monsters in the ocean are deadlier than ever, as can be seen by the shark that is approaching the idiot solider. The death shark appears and attacks the idiot soldier, completely ripping him to shreds in front of Kurosaki. Our hero can only comment that this is an extremely painful incident to witness, but he also wonders who this idiot soldier was and why he attacked him in the first place. After all, Kurosaki thought he had a friendly relationship with the soldiers, but maybe there are some who do not like summoned heroes. Now, we learn that the idiot soldier was actually the Drake fan who would activate Diddler mode to attack Shinano. Apparently, he did not like the fact that Kurosaki saved Shinano from his diddling ways, which was why he was waiting for the right time to land a sneak attack on Kurosaki. This explains the soldier's intelligence as well, and he is forgotten soon after the shark feeds on him, just like Drake's latest songs after his beef with Kendrick. Now, Kurosaki notices a lot of giant tentacles emerging from the ocean, with one of them having the death shark. The monster is revealed to be a giant octopus, and it crushes the death shard with ease. Our hero believes that this is the guardian of the floor because it is massive. Since the monster is unbelievably large, Kurosaki equips himself with his Cosmo gun and gets ready for battle. He assumes this is going to be tough, but he is able to destroy it quite easily with just one strike. Kurosaki also gains the management rights to the Ocean Currents marine floor, but he is a bit dissatisfied by how easy it was for him to win this match. He figures he might as well check out the third floor as well, because his Cosmos gun is way too powerful for the creatures of this dungeon. Now, the third floor, known as the Evening Calm Marine, opens up via the water of the ocean dropping to reveal a hidden entrance. Kurosaki is so amazed to see a hole in the sea that he wonders if this dungeon can be turned into a tourist spot. Something has to be at the bottom of this hole, so our hero decides to check it out. He continues to follow the path of the hole, and soon enough, he comes across something spectacular. It's the Guardian Master not only of this floor, but of the Grand Blue Dungeon in itself. This is a sea dragon called the Leviathan, and it makes the giant octopus look like a fried calamari. The Leviathan takes a look at Kurosaki, and he worries that this is going to be a dangerous opponent. However, based on his battles so far, he feels even the sea dragon will be a simple case of all bark and no bite. With that, he unleashes his Cosmo gun and launches a deadly attack right on the Leviathan, hoping to one-shot it. However, the attack does nothing at all to the beast, and instead, it angers the sea dragon immensely. It does not take a genius to figure out that Kurosaki has messed up here, and the Leviathan unleashes an ultimate beam to finish off our hero. It's a deadly blast that wipes out everything in front of it, but our hero is able to survive the attack. Kurosaki may be alive for now, but how is he going to counter such a powerful opponent? With his maid wives waiting for him back home, should he stay and defeat the Leviathan? Or should he just escape the dungeon with the help of Epsilon? Like, share, and subscribe if this story awakens the dark side within you. Please show these videos some love, Otherwise, I won't be able to continue with such intrusive thoughts. Okay then, I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Kurosaki has found himself in quite the pickle here as his entire HP barrier gets wiped out by only a simple graze of the sea dragon's blast. Our hero does his best to avoid the Leviathan, but he also comments that the game balance isn't adjusted at all. Epsilon shows up to tell Kurosaki that the Elysium is equipped with the highest technology, but he is not at all interested in hearing about that. He just wants to head back to safety because there's no way he's going to win against the sea dragon in his current state. The fairy girl states that our hero is still within the effective range of the dungeon master, so there's no way he'll be able to teleport right now. This is not good news for Kurosaki, as even Epsilon tells him to run as if his life literally depends on it. The Leviathan launches yet another blast, but this time, our hero is quick enough to get out of the effective range and escape to safety. He comments that he genuinely felt he was going to lose his life today, but now that he's safe, he might as well head back home and finish off some formalities before going to sleep. He also wonders what he should do with the seafood now, especially because of the vested interest from so many parties. It might be better to stop, but even Kurosaki knows it's a bit too late for that now. He figures it might be better for him to get closer to the soldiers due to the PK guy situation, but when he meets his buddy, he sees some damage done to his shop. Kurosaki asks what happened, and his buddy tries to play it off as something minor, but not the Drake kind. Kurosaki would rather not get into the details, so he offers to give the seafood he has gained. However, the shop owner seems a bit down, causing our hero to ask what's up. That's when he tells Kurosaki that he needs to be careful moving forward, as there are strange people sniffing around for him. They were the ones who messed up the shop, so Kurosaki is now interested to know more. Upon questioning his buddy a bit further, he learns that among these strange folks, there was a mid-rank maid who had hidden her face, but could not mask her voice. She isn't the main concern though, as there were also 2 female heroes of the highest rank involved. This is not something to be excited about, but when he hears that there are women involved, Kurosaki asks if they are cute and curvy babes. His buddy realizes where he's going with this, so he reminds Kurosaki to not let his intrusive thoughts take over. However, he too is a man of culture, so he reveals that the mid-rank maid looked delicious. The hero girls were wearing masks, so it was hard to judge their faces, but their bodies were definitely something else. That's all Kurosaki needs to know, as he is now looking forward to meeting his new enemies. The shop owner is surprised by our hero's confidence, but figures it must be because of his own skill. Now that they are on the same topic, the shop owner tells Kurosaki that he has a new maid girl by the name of Suzuki Fujiki, whom he would like to give to our hero. Of course, Kurosaki is not going to say no, so he takes Suzuki along, although she does look like she too has been brainwashed. Once he's home, his maid girls are shocked to see that he has come back with yet another slave. Rina states that these girls are not kittens, so it's a wonder how Kurosaki keeps getting them so easily. Of course, he is no stranger to kitties, but Rina states that her master really has way too soft a spot for cute girls. Anessa tries to calm her down, but then she notices something strange. Shinana has willingly walked up to Suzuki, and the girls stare at each other as if they know each other. After a bit of staring, Shinana hugs Suzuki in front of everyone, and even Suzuki does the same thing to her after a few seconds. This is an emotional moment for the 2 girls, but a confusing moment for the others, so Rina asks Kurosaki what's going on over here. He realizes that both the girls have the same last name, so it's highly possible that they are actually sisters. He wants to clarify something else, so he looks at Epsilon, who tells him that the thought suppression technique has been copied to Suzuki as well. This means that she is in the same boat as Shinana, but she seems to have enough consciousness to recognize her sister. On that note, Kurosaki decides to welcome Suzuki into his harem with a seafood bowl dinner. The food looks absolutely delicious, and the maid girls are thrilled to see how yummy a meal can be. There's tons of ingredients, so helping yourself to seconds is also an option. Our hero invites Itu and his maid wife as well, which means they too are making some progress with their friendship. All of this is nice for a wholesome moment, but we should not forget how evil and shameless this world actually is. That's when the mid-rank maid girl shows up and declares that she has finally found her target. Kurosaki is obviously confused over seeing a new maid, so he asks who she is. Our hero tries to be nice at first by offering a food bowl to her, but she is not interested in eating anything right now. She summons the two hero girls and reminds Kurosaki that he is currently a low-rank hero, so he should just do as she says if he does not want to face two high-rank hero girls at the same time. The mid-rank maid wants to know how someone like Kurosaki has the authority of the Grand Blue Dungeon. With a huge chunk of his cabin gone, Kurosaki definitely has a lot of problems piling up in front of him. The maid girls and Itu ask our hero who these people are supposed to be, and he hilariously states that they have come from the seafood wholesale family. He also realizes that the authority he currently holds over the Grand Blue Dungeon must be getting in the way of their monopoly on the rights. A fight cannot be evaded now, so our hero tells his maid girls to step back. He then asks Itu for help in guarding his babes because he can't afford to have them taken as hostages. Itu understands the assignment, so Kurosaki vows to pay him back for his assistance. Now, he intends to make a flashy display in front of his maid wives, so he can't look unsightly in front of them. However, he gets attacked even before the battle begins. Kurosaki is able to barely dodge the first blow, but then some fist attacks come in, and not the kind he likes to use on his maids. Kurosaki uses his barrier to block the fists, but since he is alone against two other high-rank heroes, he is going to face a real challenge. The fist attacks are rapid so that they can cover the other openings created by the large swings of their swords. This is way too bothersome for our hero, especially if we consider the fact that he has only dealt with monsters before. This is his first time against human opponents, so it's a fresh and tricky start. Kurosaki does not want to take any risks, so he goes up into the air in order to assess the situation from a safe distance. He then pulls out his blaster gun, but the female heroes use their speed and agility to stay out of his range. He can still try to land a shot, but the female heroes make sure to stay close to his maid wives as they are dodging him. This means Kurosaki can't take the risk of shooting them because he can hit his maid girls if he goes off target. The second female hero jumps up from behind Kurosaki now, catching him off guard. She then lands a direct hit on him, even breaking through his temporary shield. Kurosaki is smacked and he crashes into the floor, causing the maid girls to panic for their master. Our hero has not lost consciousness just yet, but things are not looking too good for him. Rinne wants to go help him, but the other girls hold her back because it's too dangerous. In the middle of all this commotion, something seems to be happening to Shinana and Suzuki, as the both of them have been holding hands this entire time. The maid sisters take a look at each other, and it seems like they have come up with some kind of plan. The mid-rank maid now asks Kurosaki if he is ready to talk now, but he is not going to submit so easily. He mocks her by saying he was going to tell her everything, but then he got hit in the head by the female hero, so he has forgotten what he was about to say. The mid-rank maid girl is not impressed by his sarcasm, and says that he might remember his story once he gets hit in the head again. Kurosaki prepares to take on the female heroes again, but before that, Shinana rushes to her master and hugs him. Our hero is confused by her behavior, and then Suzuki also comes from behind to hold his head. Kurosaki wonders what's going on with these two, but there's not time to argue, so he tells them to stay back. However, at this very moment, Epsilon shows up and then Kurosaki hears another voice. It's the spirit force of the other girls, and it tells Kurosaki that he has some options which can be utilized. The mid-rank maid girl is confused by all this chatter, so she orders Kurosaki to look at her while she's talking to him. She gets offended by the silent treatment, so she orders the female heroes to attack Kurosaki, while also revealing their names to be Ryuko and Renka. She wants them to charge at our hero at the same time because she wants to be done with this nonsense immediately. The female heroes unleash their finisher moves as they charge towards Kurosaki, causing the other maid girls to fear the worst. However, to everyone's surprise, both Ryuko and Renka are smacked away like little flies. The mid-rank maid watches on in horror as the female heroes lie defeated on the ground with just one strike. She then looks at our hero who has reached a whole new level now. The system congratulates him for upgrading his adventurer class, which is now the Astro King class, just like the name of this manga. Renka and Ryuko somehow managed to get back up again, so the mid-rank maid believes this was just a fluke attack. She orders the hero girls to strike once again, but she clearly does not seem to understand the aura that is being emitted from Kurosaki right now. The hero girls attack him at full force, but the barrier he has now is way too strong for them to penetrate. That has anyway been Kurosaki's job during this entire story, and the mid-rank maid girl can't believe what she is seeing. This is a ridiculously strong HP barrier, which is supposed to belong to a completely different defense skill. This is supposed to be impossible, especially for a low-rank hero like Kurosaki. But this story has proven to us that nothing can ever be unexpected in this world. The mid-rank maid takes a look at Kurosaki now and demands to know who he really is. Our hero simply laughs at her and says that this is his true ability, known as the Astro King ability, and he is now going to use his special move Astronauts. He mocks his opponents and says that they can no longer even lay a finger on him anymore. But there's something going on behind his confident face. Kurosaki has noticed that his enemies have freaked out, so he is just taking advantage of the situation and trying to act tough. However, in reality, he has no idea at all as to what is going on and how this is happening. Of course, all of this has to go back to Epsilon's condition from earlier when she showed up in front of her master. Now, we are taken to a brief flashback to when both Shinana and Suzuki showed up in front of our hero. As Kurosaki asked them to stay back, he noticed that there were two other spirits with Epsilon. These are the spirits of Shinana and Suzuki, both of whom are now working with the fairy girl to boost Kurosaki's power. There's a lot of technical talk going on between them which we don't really need to understand, apart from the fact that they are now merging their systems together. Epsilon 2 works on these applications, and from all the technical language being used, it looks like the spirits are trying to bypass some security loopholes set by this world. The other two spirits in action are Omicron and Theta, both of whom have now delegated their authorities to Epsilon now. Now, the fair girl shows off her own curvy body and starts stating a lot of words and phrases that only computer engineers may be able to understand. Epsilon tells Kurosaki that due to the overload on her right now, the accuracy of her interface may decrease by a bit. But our hero has no idea what anew of this means right now. She says that out of the three heroes right now, the skill upgrade will be given to the one who is at the highest level, which is obviously Kurosaki. Shinana and Suzuki have their highest levels set at Advent King and Ocean King, but our hero is way higher at Astro King, so he gets to use their spirit powers. Epsilon now says that there are no rude bugs, but this once again makes no sense at all to Kurosaki. She goes on to say something more about the subjugation of a corresponding Master Guardian, like the Leviathan from before. However, Kurosaki tells her not to speak in such a technical manner about unreasonable achievements with such a casual tone. There's a lot about the practicality of what Epsilon is saying that makes our hero uneasy, but the fact that he is having this chat with the fairy girl right now does indicate that there is a chance for him to turn things around. He realizes that Epsilon has a thing for him as well, so he will go ahead with whatever name the fairy girl decides for him. She says that the name Astro King is cool and amazing, so they should go ahead with that one. At this moment, Kurosaki's class got raised to that of Astro King, and it was at this moment that the evil maid and heroes realized they messed up. Thanks to the three spirits coming together, Kurosaki is able to use the move Astronauts up to level 4, although it is stated as a temporary bonus. Thanks to that, Epsilon also decides to dress up her master so that he can look a bit more dapper. With our hero looking like a total boss now, we are back to the present where he decides to take down the hero girls with ease. He unleashes a barrier blast that destroys his opponents instantly, but he chooses to leave them alive for obvious reasons. This blast also causes another major portion of the house to get incinerated, and by the looks of it, this could be on the same level as the Leviathan blast. The hero girls are down and out for the count, but Kurosaki is more worried about the damage he has caused to the real estate around him. He clearly did not mean to do so much harm, but he obviously does not know the true extent of his powers. Our hero wants to make sure that Ryoko and Renka don't lose their lives here, so he uses his jet power to fly to their positions. The mid-rank maid girl is shocked to see what's going on over here, but she needs to remember that Kurosaki is still a hero, albeit a shady one. After assessing the situation of the fallen hero girls, Kurosaki decides to bring out his inventory to assist them with their recovery. The first item he brings out is the Lesser Heal Potion, which is familiar in role-playing games to treat injuries or wounds. This is not just good for healing, but it also revitalizes the skin, with regular usage even leading to reverse aging effects. Kurosaki makes sure his maid girls are also using this, which is why their bodies always look so lively. He even goes on to tell us that some potions may be able to regenerate the hymen, which would definitely make Drake spend all his money on it. This is also used by the evil folks of the world for doing illegal and incorrect things to the girls brought from Earth, so it's not always about fun and games. Kurosaki restores the female heroes to basic health and allows them to recover, but he also has to deal with the mid-rank maid girl who has now admitted complete and total defeat. She says that it's up to Kurosaki what he wants to do with her, Renka, Ryoko. He can even boil or burn them if he wants, but we all know that a man of culture like him will not put such an opportunity to waste. Now, our boy Kurosaki engages in some of the shadiest things you can ever imagine with this new maid girl. She's given tons of elephant water as a meal, and she does seem to appreciate it. The seafood distribution had stopped because she was in the castle, so our hero decides to visit her family to put in a word. He manages to get the job done from his end, although he does rely on looking scary for it. They come to an agreement wherein Kurosaki will open the first floor of the Grand Blue Dungeon once a week for the family until they have an heir to take over the authority. It's win-win situation as per Kurosaki, but we all know he's the one benefiting from this arrangement. Bro also tells the family to take care of the curvy hound babes Ryoko and Renka because he could get used to their pillows and kitties. After doing all of this, Kurosaki also realizes that he could enter all the dungeons without meeting any conditions till now because of Epsilon. We also learned that there was a nerf in the final update of his skills due to a war breaking out in this world, but our hero is not sure how to feel about it. Epsilon continues by saying the abilities of the adventurer class and all higher classes were also supposed to be nerfed, which worries Kurosaki a bit. With such great skills at his disposal, he would have understood the nerf, but now that he's gotten used to being the Astro King, he can't live without them. He asks his fairy girl if the paused update will resume and nerf him again, but she states she can't say more about that. It's a bit suspicious, but our hero figures now would be a good time to conquer as many dungeons as he can while he still has this new form. It turns out that the lower hero's mansion got destroyed due to the walls igniting from an alcohol explosion. It spread even further to the gunpowder barrels, so the soldiers made it one mess after the other. It's all about the bribes in this world, but that's actually how life normally runs in any world. Either way, Bro is done with whatever he needed to do here, so it's time to head back home and enjoy a nice, shady session with his maid girls. After an intense session of one elephant and multiple kitties, Kurosaki is told by his system that his babes Anessa, Rina, Sylvia, Shinana, and Suzuri have all conceived from his elephant water. Later, we see Kurosaki flying through the ocean sky with great speed, and he introduces himself to us once again. He reminds us that he obtained the class of Astro King during his fight with the Hound babes. He's currently testing his skills in the Grand Blue Dungeon to see what all he can do. For starters, there's the jet skill, which is on a whole other level. He creates sonic booms and exceeds the speed of sound, which leads him to plunge into the sea after losing control. He also has the adapt skill, which means he feels no resistance whether in the air or in water. He has an advanced level of the step skill, and can also use astronauts, which is a deadly attack for any kind of battle. Epsilon adds that the Astro King class is capable of converting the energy of the void, but Kurosaki doesn't know anything about this. The fairy girl explains that this world has its upper limit unlocked, so if you exceed 300%, then you can interfere with three-dimensional space. This implies involving yourself with other worlds and parallel universes too. But that didn't really work out for the Marvel Universe, so we don't know what will happen here. Now, Epsilon turns into a scientist and starts to explain the void, but our man asks her to chill. Kurosaki tells us that even though Epsilon is his guide, she does tend to be a bit extra when it comes to her explanations. He may not get all the details, but either way, his Astro King class is amazing. The idea of transferring to another world does give Kurosaki some ideas, but then he notices that he accidentally ran over the hermit octopus while in the water. He might as well collect its meat for dinner tonight. Back home, he is welcomed by Anessa, but he can't keep his control any longer, so they engage in unspeakable acts. It's just another day to be pampered by his babes, so we all say it should have been me, not him, although we may have probably also tried to free the other slave girls too. Now, Anessa and Rinne realize that the dungeon authority has passed onto the pregnant Sylvia's child. Kurosaki is amazed that his girls needed to check the device to confirm the pregnancy, but Sylvia is so happy that she breaks down into tears. After all, she was rejected for not being able to bear a child, and she had almost given up hope, so our hero is glad he was able to do something good for her. Shinana and Suzuri decide to unleash their tongue twisters, and Kurosaki seems to like the fact that they operate like sisters. If they get along so well, it could be possible that they are actually sisters, which makes things more exciting for Bro. Now, it's time to get the story from Suzuri's side, so we have to go on another flashback. We are back in the real world of Japan in the city, where we see Suzuri checking out her phone. It's been 2 weeks since her Oni-chan went missing, and the news mentions the mass disappearance, although some people claim this is a prank by the students themselves. She figured that Shinana studies in a prestigious school, so there's no way this could have been a prank. The school is trying to cover up the scandal, but the parents are furious for having lost their children. The media is only fueling the conflict further, but no one is really trying to follow the clues. Over time, this topic gets forgotten about, but Suzuri was not going to just sit there and let it happen. However, one not-so-fine day, she also gets teleported from the real world to our hero's new domain. Of course, she is not aware of this place, and neither are all the other people from the street that got picked up. The guards are also shocked that so many people got sucked in, so it could be a case malfunction. Either way, they must do something, so the king speaks by calling everyone heroes. He says that men and women need to separate themselves, so the scam begins. Suzuri is confused, but since there are others like her, she blindly follows the instructions. However, she considers herself a fool for doing this, because she allowed the slave collar to be put on her. A fog creeps over her head, and the next thing she sees is something extremely messed up. The evil acts are first shown to the new girls as if it's a TV show, but since Suzuri could not believe what was happening, she started to lose track of reality. Of course, she did feel that Susanoo would have gone through the same thing, and eventually Suzuri was also subjected to the same inhuman treatment. This would continue for a while, till she got brainwashed into enjoying the acts, which is straight out of the Poughkeepsie tapes. There's one man who likes her a lot, but he's the same Drake fan Kurosaki had humbled earlier. Back then, Suzuri liked him because he said he liked her. Even with all this, whenever Suzuri would go to sleep at night, the one thought in her head at all times was to see her Oni-chan again. One night, a little bird shows up, saying sorry for the late support. It's none other than Omicron, who apologizes for not being able to find Suzuri earlier. Luckily, she is still able to reply to him, despite being somewhat brainwashed. Now, we move back to the present where we see our hero in action yet again. He is with the new freelance maid of the lower hero house, but he does not want to know her name as he might grow too fond of her and add to his maid-wife harem. Explosion after explosion arrive for the maid girl, but she feels that she won't be able to get any work done if things keep going on like this. Kurosaki is a raging bull, so he tells her that taking care of his elephant is also an important job. Later, while she's doing the laundry, our hero joins in as well, making sure to involve elephant water and kitty water to the washing water. Our hero then explains that even though water can be made with magic over here, the process of doing laundry is quite manual. Now, this new maid girl whom he refers to as a gets too tired, so he moves on to maid girl B, who is at the drying area. He knows he's interfering with their work, but since these are free girls over here, it's highly probably that the other low-rank heroes would have had some fun too. Either way, Kurosaki has become numb to any kind of shame or morality, so he continues on his merry way. Maid B's legs also give out, so it's time to move on to Maid C, who also tires out soon after. Now, Kurosaki reveals to us that sometimes these maids are not volunteers but are rather picked up from the streets by the manhunting brigade. It's not an ideal situation, but our hero also sounds like a villain for encouraging such acts. On top of that, if a child of a lower-class hero is born, and there's no authority, then they're thrown out to the town below the castle. This may sound horrible, but these kids are actually protected by the town, and they even receive some money to be cared for, which is somewhat like a safety net to allow the shady acts of the castle to continue. Now, Maid Girl C is also giving out after another intense explosion. This does feel great to our raging bull, and he has earned the absolute control rights over these three maid girls, whose names are revealed to be Lulu, Mana, and Cyril. Epsilon asks Kurosaki if he would like to acquire these maid girls, but he asks her to put this on hold. Normally, 10 free maids are allocated to a lower hero, and Kurosaki currently has 5, so he is under capacity. However, apart from these 3 girls, Bro has also gotten 2 other girls named Lilia and Lishur. He was also with a girl named Sonia, but she was taken as a bridemaid when Sata became a mid-rank hero. Now, we learn that due to the mass amounts of people in the recent summoning involving Suzuri, most of the girls were allotted to the other heroes, which is why the number of free maids has reduced. Kurosaki is still feeling restless because he already has unlimited elephant water, and with his recent skill boost, he is feeling even more energetic. He will take care of this in the night with his maid brides, but he has not visited the soldiers in a while, so he goes to check how they're doing. Kurosaki uses his big brain energy and wonders why they have an army when there are no neighboring countries. It could be to suppress revolts or energy gems, but our hero is actually considering putting an end to all this by getting hero maids as well. He asks his buddy if it can be done, but he says it will raise suspicion. Kurosaki asks for a loophole, so his buddy says that he can put them under soldier points. Since it will be under his jurisdiction, he will be able to keep it a secret from others. Kurosaki is glad to see that administrative corruption is quite strong here, because now he can get maid brides with hero points and hero brides with soldier points. There are also citizen points, but they are not handled here. Now, Kurosaki's buddy says that they caught something interesting during their last summoning, so our hero is curious to know. These are idols from the real world who have become super popular in this world as well. As a matter of fact, there are crazy auctions going on for them too. Kurosaki remembers seeing these girls on TV in Japan, even remembering their names to be Marion, Arisu, Shirafu, and Siren. It turns out that after a live performance, there is a shady performance too, which can't be helped because of their popularity. Kurosaki realizes that because of these idol girls, the rest of his classmates who were summoned here have been neglected. He intends to enjoy some bittersweet student life here, although it's sad because he could have ended up dating one of them if life went on as usual. He goes through 9 girls, which once again makes him out to be a villainous character, which makes us wonder what the author actually wants us to think of Kurosaki. Now, we move to the intermediate hero hall where news of Yoshida passing away spreads. The heroes there don't care because they're busy with shady acts. In the middle of all this, one other hero says that Yoshida had reached level 4, which made him arrogant and careless. We learn that the new mid-heroes are better than the previous ones because more of them were reaching level 3. It turns out that Yoshida's passing has made the heroes aware that they can't save a checkpoint here like a cheat code in a game. The heroes don't even want to move to advanced level now because being mid is good enough for them. After all, there's food, maids, and no school, with heroes only needing to go to the dungeons once every 2 days. Sure, they would like to know what the high-class maids are like, but it's not a deal breaker. These heroes get so shady that they need to use potions to keep going, and enhancements are mixed into their food as well. As it turns out, them giving children is more important than clearing dungeons. Even going to the dungeons is basically to increase libido as a side effect. However, it's not like they care about such things, as they have become brainless, just like stud horses. Now, we move to the Evergreen Dungeon's second floor, which is called the Chaos Pasture. A bull monster comes charging, but there is a man in knight armor ready to take it on. It's a fierce collision, but the man is strong enough to keep the bull at bay. There are other heroes here as well, and they decide to gang up on the bull monster to take it down. Our hero is watching them from a distance, but he feels it's a bit extra for so many heroes to take on an opponent of such a level. He thinks maybe it's for training someone of a lesser rank or whatever, but it does not matter to him much. He levels up his own way like an aura farmer from solo leveling minus the unspeakable axe. Epsilon tells Kurosaki that he is now at level 10, which is good news, although he wishes to become even stronger. He remembers Itu now, who always looks at him with rage and has also almost reached level 10. It doesn't make sense for the main character to be at a lower level than Itu, so Kurosaki wants to become a lot stronger. Now, Kurosaki enters his maid waiting room with his 3 free maids from earlier, and there's another one round the corner. He can smell some cosmetics and a somewhat milky aroma. It's bigger than his room, but feels a bit cramped due to there being 5 beds. It's easier to spend time here now, since there is still some room for 5 more maid girls. The maids tells Kurosaki that they usually tend to guests every night, so they're all never in bed at the same time anyway back in the castle. They ask if the head maid also shares the same room, to which he says yes. Anyway, now that the maid girls are here with Kurosaki, they tell him that since he has pleased them well, maybe they can cherish his elephant. Bro can sense the kitty water from being unfulfilled by the other heroes, so he decides to show them the real final boss of shady acts. He gets done with the job and overwrites himself all over the maids. It's said that cleaning the elephant water should be kept to a minimum to increase the chances of having a child. Epsilon adds that these 3 girls are the apprentices of lower-ranked maids, so they don't wear undergarments. After this session, our hero gains absolute management rights to Lulu, Mana, and Cyril, but he expected nothing less. With that being said, he makes sure he will buy them and make them his maid wives. This makes his other maid wives a bit jealous, but they can't really say anything about it. Now that Kurosaki has taken a liking to them, he will not allow any other man to touch them, so he keeps Mana, Lulu, and Cyril confined to his room. The new maids meet Sylvia, who calls out to them with rage, but also says that she is glad to have them around now. The maids wonder if she has become kinder now due to being pregnant, but Lulu, Mana, and Cyril still decide to be careful around her. Kurosaki feels that his room is way too cramped now with 8 maid girls, so he thinks about what the rooms in the mid-rank hero halls must be like. Anessa and Rinne immediately say no to this suggestion, which surprises their master. They say that maids like them are not allowed near mid-rank heroes, so Kurosaki asks about leaving the castle altogether. It's possible, but it won't be easy with this many maid girls. Our hero could fly each of them out one by one, but to take out 6 maid wives and 2 hero wives would be tricky. Plus, there will be no peace once they are outside the world of Elysium and become wanted fugitives. So, using force is out of the question. The very fact that Susano and Suzuri are here means that Bro is doing something illegal. After all, the unfair treatment given to the female heroes is never shared with the male heroes. It's probably in order to make them get used to the evil ways of this kingdom eventually. Now, Rinne suggests that the best time to leave the castle would be when the next hero summoning occurs. Anessa adds that since the areas get reset, the current heroes have a parting ceremony. Sylvia elaborates by saying this parting ceremony is a method of separation to remove the trash from the elites. Her statement makes Kurosaki believe that she is siding with him, to which she simply smiles. Our hero wants to get exiled because that would be convenient for him, but he will need to mask his power for that. He asks what happens to the maid wives of an exiled hero, and learns that they will always stay together. This means that he will need to buy the other 4 maid girls before the deadline. Anessa states that Kurosaki will already be under surveillance because he is a bit suspicious, so he thinks about bribing some of the hero management folks. The maid girls say that his money will be better spent on buying more maid girls because lower rank heroes are normally believed to descend into ditty madness with time. This sounds like a good plan, so Kurosaki asks Sylvia for the deadline. She says that what she is about to reveal is confidential, so Bro will need to keep it to himself. There are 2 hero sections inside the castle, and summoning occurs 10 times a year with intervals of around 30 to 40 days. Heroes are usually kept inside the castle for 2 months, and the most recent summoning was about a week ago, involving Suzuri and the idols. That gives him a maximum of 30 days until the deadline. Our hero comments on how this is a vicious cycle of brainwashing both male and female heroes, but such is the way of this world. After all, in high school, men have the most active elephants, and this kind of behavior will mess up the way they view women, which is why Comic Guzzlers repeats that this kind of lifestyle is completely wrong and unhealthy, including Kurosaki, who may have some control but is also a bit messed up. The next immediate issue is to do with the small room. So Rinne suggests turning the lower rank hero hall into Kurosaki's personal harem hall. Itu can be controlled, but it's Suzuki and Tadahashi who need to be managed. Sylvia is a bit concerned to hear this because Kurosaki is suggesting ending them, but he says that is not the case. He knows that they will leave this place as soon as they become mid-rank heroes. Now we move to the mid-rank hero hall, where a bunch of mid-rank maids welcome the new joiners. The ones being welcomed are none other than Suzuki and Tadahashi, just as our hero had expected. The boys are glad to see so many maid babes, but instead of a blessing, there is some condescension. They ask for the head maid named Stella and tell her that all the maids here will be lower in rank as compared to their maid wives. They want Stella to understand and bow her head, but their wives say it's not like that over here. The boys want their wives to feel proud and arrogant, which makes them quite happy. Now, the boys turn to Stella and call her a lower-class maid who has been pampered a bit too much. It's time for some discipline, and the boys think that they are going to enjoy being here. It feels great both to the boys and to the maids because in this world, the higher the hero's level, the more enjoyable it is for the maid girls. Both Suzuki and Tadahashi have levels that exceed mid-rank heroes, which is why they are a bit too much for the mid-rank maids to take. It doesn't just stop at one maid girl, as they lay their hands on everyone in front of them. Both Itu and Kurosaki watch on as the boys fulfill their fantasies, and they are pleased that the plan has worked out well. Of course, Kurosaki did not expect them to be driven out in such a way, and Itu calls him sharp as well as his best friend. That's a good thing for our hero, and then the maid wives ask him about the tactic their master used, which is called power leveling. Kurosaki reveals that he was taking Suzuki and Takahashi around with him, feeding them experience points in the process. This forcefully raised their levels and fulfilled the conditions to be transferred to the mid-rank hero hall. Due to the status appraisal, they were able to get classified as mid-rank heroes. Rinne praises her master for his big brain energy, and suggests that the 2 maids who have gone with the boys give Kurosaki something as a parting gift, if you can catch my drift. However, Sylvia says that no such thing will be done, and her word as head maid trumps Rinne's. Plus, she knows that the other 2 maids only look at our hero and the other maids as prey. Even right now, they will only try to milk Suzuki and Tadahashi for all they're worth. Now that Kurosaki thinks about it, he recalls that these 2 maids are quite selfish indeed. They used to keep asking him for favors even in the middle of shady acts. Bro could not feel their dedication to their duties as maids, so Rinna now agrees that those ungrateful maids should not be around them. Now, our hero says that while it may be fine to kick them out, what will happen when they get replaced? However, Sylvia says that she wouldn't worry about that because there are too many heroes in the other section. They will not be able to spare replacements for just 2 loser boys, which is also why they are understaffed when it comes to maid girls. Rinna is glad that this thing is settled, so she says that they should coordinate with the next appraisal day, as the current one is tomorrow. However, Kurosaki tells her that is not going to do at all. He needs to strike while the iron is hot, which is why he is planning on abducting them tonight. They will then be taken to the dungeon for power leveling, so that our hero does not have to worry about waiting for such a long time. On that note, Kurosaki clenches his fist and says that it is going to be an effort which will go all night long. Now, Kurosaki goes to meet Itu, but when he knocks on the door, nobody answers. Bro can definitely feel his presence, so it's a bit suspicious. It could be that he is in the middle of something, which is true, as he is in the middle of some kitty. He is told by Alice that someone is at the door, but Bro does not care. He wants Alice to only look at him, and he calls her truly beautiful. He's such a simp that he says Alice is like a light fairy, although with a flat-screen TV. He even calls her a goddess, but to violate a goddess is the ultimate sin. Even so, Itu does not care, so he goes for it. The shady session extends towards multiple explosions, and Itu feels that they are blessed to be able to do such things. This is when Itu's dolphin version of Epsilon shows up and mocks him for being so absurd. Itu does not like his navigator spirit at all, and makes it known to him. The argument is halted because Itu does not want to love Alice with impure thoughts. He decides to forget about the dolphin and goes on to say a whole bunch of simp stuff before exploring Alice's wonderland. As the session continues, Itu pours some potion on Alice, because he does not want her to get corrupted with each shot. Bro is really weird, but at least he's respectful. The dolphin appears again to crack some jokes, and he tells Itu that instead of focusing on a maid girl who's already pregnant, he should focus on the other slaves. Itu tries to keep himself in check because he does not want Alice to see his dolphin. It turns out that Itu had promised Alice that he would never do anything unsightly in front of her, such as raising his voice or being violent. However, Kurosaki continues with the knocking, so Itu forgets all his promises and launches an attack. Our hero dodges it, but his babe asks him if it is okay for them to continue. He is unhinged like a total Chad, even as Itu blurts out all kinds of expletives at him, thinking he is some kind of delivery boy. However, Domino's does not deliver to this world, and he quickly realizes that it's Kurosaki at the door. Itu goes from angry beast to gentle boy as he greets our hero. Of course, Itu does not want Kurosaki to look at Alice in her birthday suit, but our hero promises he is not looking. Anyway, he needs to borrow Itu for a bit because he himself can't look at other people's statuses. He reveals the plan to kick out Suzuki and Tadahashi, after which he reveals that the both of them have been secured. They seem to be down and out for the count because of excessive explosions, and Itu notices that they are quite weak. With not a single condition met for a class change, these boys are actually quite pathetic, so Kurosaki decides to go ahead with the all-nighter he had planned. He gives Itu a bag head, after which the both of them get into some bizarre disguises. Now, we see the both of them going at it in the open field, taking down several monsters with their immense strength. Since the weak boys are with them, they will get experience points, even though they are passed out. Kurosaki still thinks that this system does not make sense, as the others are not even doing anything, but it would be better not to ask too many questions. The boys hunt with a clear mind and take down tons of monsters. Now, the Scarecrow monster shows up and attacks Kurosaki, but he blocks him with ease. He is much stronger now, but then Itu takes down the Scarecrow with one blow. Our hero is surprised to see this, as the Scarecrow is no pushover. Itu has become quite powerful, even though he is not in the combat class. Kurosaki does want to remain stronger than Itu, because he goes totally berserk like a madman. After some more efforts, the mission becomes a success, as the loser boys level up. Their mouths are still foaming and twitching, so Kurosaki is not sure of what to do. The boys' elephants suddenly stand in attention, which could be a side effect of leveling up. Itu decides to give the loser boys some potions to make it right, and then the boys put on their evil faces. There's still time till the morning, so they decide to go at it some more, because they are truly intent on making a strange new class. Suzuki and Tadahashi are told to be grateful as they are given some more potions, and then this is the story of how they became intermediate heroes. They had no idea how this happened because they just woke up with the new stats, but either way, the temporary harem hall is now established, thanks to Kurosaki's plan. Now, we suddenly move back to some super shady action, as Sylvia tells her lord she does not want to be teased anymore. As she is about to explode, Kurosaki tells us how the head maid knows exactly how to resonate with a man and his intrusive thoughts. After the session is done, we learn that since Suzuki and Tadahashi have been driven out, all the rooms in the lower hero mansion, apart from Itu's, have been turned into a harem mansion. This means that bro can do whatever he wants with whomever he wants, wherever he wants. It does not matter who his babe is. Kurosaki can unleash beast mode as he pleases. Suzuri is taken in the dining hall, and then it's Rinne's turn in the bathroom. This is the life every man of culture wishes to live, minus the forceful stuff we have seen before this. Plus, life here is much better than the intermediate hall, where any man can try to steal your girl. After all, after living such a lifestyle, going back to Japan does not seem feasible anymore. Even the convenience store clerk asks for a quick one, so bro activates flash mode. Next is Shinana at the front door, and this time she seems to have really expressive eyes. Kurosaki hopes this means enjoyment and he carries on. All of a sudden, she says the word going after her explosion, and she repeats it a couple of times, much to the surprise of our harem king. It seems as if she wants to go to the dungeon, and that's when Kurosaki realizes that Shinana and Suzuri are supposed to be heroes as well. Shinana once again says that she wants to go together with Kurosaki, so he feels a little bit of hunting won't do any harm. Of course, he wouldn't want his babes to level up to the point where they become extra thirsty, although that would be cute to him. He needs to ask Sylvia about it first, and she says there is no problem as long as Shinana wishes to go with him. However, there is the obvious issue of her maid outfit standing out at the dungeon hall with the teleportation magic circle. Kurosaki agrees with her, so he gets Shinana some casual clothes sold at the hero counter. Honestly, this looks more like cosplay, considering the nature of the shop. Bro wishes he knew about this sooner, but better late than never. Now, we move to the evergreen fourth floor called the Agriland. The place is filled with weak enemies, which makes it a perfect hunting ground for farming experience. Shinana has been given a spear for poking, and Kurosaki is going to do the heavy lifting. He will try to avoid excessive power leveling, otherwise Sung Jin-woo will show up to reclaim his throne. Shinana seems to be good at hunting, and she is quite adorable as she attacks the monsters here. Of course, there are some unspeakable acts mixed in the middle of all this, but we can definitely see that Shinana is meant for hunting monsters. There are no breaks, as the couple is either hunting or engaging, but if they both want it, then Comic Guzzler sees no reason to intervene. Now, our hero comes back home after gaining some experience. For lunch, there are lots of drop items that were used from the evergreen floors. There's special pasta and pizza, so everyone is in for a yummy meal. As the harem squad enjoys the food, Suzuri seems to have some kind of awakening. She says the word going as well, which our hero mistakes for some kind of air climax, if such things even exist. However, Suzuri is able to call Kurosaki Oni-chan and asks to go together, so at least we know that both the hero girls are willing to be here. Shinana pats her on the head, and she expresses feelings of happiness, which is another good thing in a world so messed up. Kurosaki is also pleased that Shinana and Suzuri get along like sisters, but it does as though Suzuri feels left out. He gets her an outfit as well, and decides to take them both for leveling purposes in the afternoon. They hunt in moderation to the point where both the hero girls are grown to level 3. It's late to mention this, but Rinna tells us in the middle of a tongue twister that women are actually forbidden in the dungeon. After all, if they level up with more HP, then men at lower levels will not be able to get shady with them. Speaking of females leveling up, Kurosaki remembers the Hound babes and his conversation with their master in a brief flashback. He revealed that both the girls managed to get strong, rare classes at the time of their summoning. People like these are bought by rich nobles, who enjoy them for a while, after which they are sent to the dungeons for training. These girls then develop HP barriers, making shady acts impossible, but they do become obedient pawns. There are many uses for such girls, as they can act like escorts or for labyrinth conquests. Kurosaki did not understand this because if women can't procreate, then they can't pass the authority. If the girls survive for too long or grow to a certain level, then they become difficult to keep, so they are forbidden from entering dungeons. The reason for this is only found in rumors that state how there have been enough female heroes who had grown to levels which would invalidate their contracts. The Lord also mentions that men in general would not want to have someone so powerful by their side. Kurosaki says that if he regained his human sanity, then he would find this to be scary. He then learns that it's due to these complications that female heroes at higher levels are pushed on to noble families who have the necessary means to keep them in check. Now, it all makes sense to our hero, who takes great pride in how he was able to make use of Ryoko and Renka. Such girls are also used to maintain the security of the town below the castle, and are considered to be the strongest military force of the kingdom. Anyway, we're back to the present now, as Kurosaki wants to practice a few things. He asks Shinana if she can resist a little bit, and she is able to activate her HP barrier. It's almost as if he can feel his python will not be able to slide in properly. Having said that, he can still enter because he is at a higher level than her. As a matter of fact, forcing his way through the barrier HP makes him feel quite excited, which once again makes us wonder if he is the hero or the villain. Luckily, Shinana feels the same way, as she explodes almost instantly from this experience. Bro has some sick thoughts, but aside from that, there doesn't seem to be any negative effects from leveling up. Either way, he feels he should stop raiding the dungeons with Shinana and Suzuri for now. He can notice that Suzuri can't even pretend to resist, so his shady intentions actually turned into a lovey-dovey moment. Now, we move to the night sky, where we see a massive dragon flying through it. Suddenly, something seems to catch its attention as it comes in close. Of course, this is none other than Kurosaki, who flies right at the dragon and slashes it with his sword. Epsilon appears and tells him that he has reached level 13, which may not seem like much, but is a lot of progress. Now, we learn that this night sky is actually the Sky Forest, which is a dungeon recommended by the fairy girl. This is a place where islands float in a zero-gravity void, but it makes more sense to just call it outer space. Each floating island does seem to have its own gravity for some reason, and there are plants growing there as well. Bro has no idea where all the water is coming from, because civilization has been created in these spaces. There are waterfalls flowing from the edges of the island, which creates a rather beautiful scenery. In terms of technology, it does seem a bit extra, but more importantly, Kurosaki asks Epsilon if he should be worried about radiation or cosmic rays in this dungeon. She says that it's a specially shielded alternate dimension, so there is no cause for concern. The Sky Forest was originally made as a part of the preparations for Armageddon, but then it was bought and converted into a dungeon by Elysium. That's when we learn that it was designed as an arc ship equipped with a fully self-sufficient system. Kurosaki notices that his fairy girl is being unusually talkative and lively today, and she's glad that he noticed. She elaborates that the Sky Dungeon is located in a special field outside the planetary magic sphere, so even the Great Spirit Grease can barely manage the influence here. Basically, if there is no one monitoring the place, you can let loose and have fun here. With no restrictions and minimal magic interference, the dungeon was deemed a failure in terms of being an arc ship. This makes our hero remember Shinana and Suzuri for some reason, and while he says he gets it, we don't. He then says that Epsilon may not always be honest, but she is really kind to him, which makes him wonder if she has been guiding him right off the bat. One thing is for sure, which is that Bro wants this dungeon all to himself. Epsilon says that if he wants to make that happen, then he will have to defeat the dungeon boss Jizu and claim absolute authority over the dungeon. This level of difficulty sounds about right, so Bro rushes through all the small fries in his way. He wonders if this Jizu is going to be as tough as the Leviathan he had faced earlier, and at this very moment, the dungeon boss crosses him like it's nothing. It's massive, but it's also flying a bit too far away. Jizu looks like a graceful bird, so it's aura farming without even trying. Epsilon states that Jizu has not once been defeated since the Sky Forest opened. It's way beyond the floating islands, and also looks to be beyond the dungeon fields. As a result, it grew and became the master's original intent. Of course, this just makes the game's master a bit sloppy, but it could be that Jizu was left alone because at that time they had the technology to deal with it. The dungeon boss destroyed satellite weapons and was called the Demon of the Skies by those who had survived the Armageddon. Epsilon goes on to praise the dungeon some more, but Kurosaki is not in the mood for such things, so he cuts her off. Even so, he does not know how he is going to take down such a massive foe. After all, Jizu is a space monster in its home ground. Kurosaki does not know if he can even function outside the dungeon field, because he can't just swim through space with his body. Using the adapt skill may not work here, but then he remembers that with astronauts obtained at level 4 of Astro King, any activity outside the atmosphere becomes possible for him. Bro had used this against the Hound babes, so he is a bit more confident now. This does seem like surpassing certain life forms, but our hero does find the Astro King class weird. Epsilon would rather not answer that question unless her lawyer is present, so Kurosaki figures he'll just work hard and level up his Astro King class by one more stage. Of course. He will also need to pick up a weapon to take on Jizu, but he will realistically need a whole arsenal. It will need to work against something the size of Jizu, and since the Cosmo gun was not effective on the Leviathan, Bro will definitely need something stronger. Kurosaki tries his luck by visiting the hero support office, but there's no way they'd be selling super weapons of such capacity, so he will need to find them himself. His buddy tells him that the 4 idols who came here earlier have gone through fertilization suppression procedures, and have become everyone's hero wives. Naturally, Kurosaki partakes in the feast because at this stage, it would be rude not to. The idol girls seem to have a great sense of making noise, probably due to all the vocal training they had to go through. Epsilon asks Kurosaki if he would like to bypass the fertilization suppression and impregnate the idol girls, but he tells her no because the idols will lose their value amongst the soldiers if that happens. Plus, they might resent him for doing that, and he does not want to ruin the good relationships he's built. For now, he has his fun and thanks his buddy for the meal. As he embarks on his next journey, Kurosaki tells us that he never thought he would go back here, but it's his best shot at getting a strong enough weapon. He asks Epsilon if she can set up the gate, as she suggests the 4th level of the Evergreen Dungeon. Kurosaki asks if there is anything of value there, but she says that a wandering disaster has occurred in Agriland. This refers to an event where a Master Guardian who should be at the lowest layer transports to another floor. Apparently, it's been 300 years since a behemoth last teleported, and while Kurosaki thought this would be a good way to gain absolute dungeon control authority, it would be better to focus on his mission. He goes to the dungeon and notices the behemoth, which is indeed true to its name. As a matter of fact, it's so huge that it reminded him of the time he first got to look at Sylvia's cake. Of course, he needs to control his hormones, and tells us that the behemoth is not as large as the Leviathan or Jizu, as it's only 20 meters tall. It does look ridiculously heavy though, so our hero will need to test out some of his skills. He begins with an ultimate move he had developed for fighting Jizu, which he calls the jet kick. Kurosaki begins the fight with the kick, but even after landing a direct hit, the monster doesn't even budge. Strangely enough, the behemoth just looks at him and then goes on to eat the corn monsters. There is no counterattack, which makes Kurosaki confused. Anyway, he brings out his sword and slashes the behemoth multiple times, but still gets no reaction. This could mean that it is one of those monsters which does not actively attack or even counter when struck. It may be unconventional, but the behemoth regenerates in no time, which amazes our hero. With no other choice, Kurosaki uses the cosmic gun on it, and while he does make a big dent, the monster is able to regenerate that as well. He gets disappointed by what he sees, because there does not seem to be any way to defeat the behemoth head-on. Epsilon says that this beast is a specialist in master regeneration, and it can do so at incredible speed as long as it has food. This means that as long as it is in Agriland, it is invincible. Kurosaki does not want to waste any time, so he figures he'll just take some meat off its back and head towards his actual destination. He'd like to taste some mammoth steak, and more importantly, it seems as though the behemoth is going to be here for another year at least before it heads back to its original floor. Since it doesn't attack, Bro will still be able to hunt as long as he avoids it. Of course, there's the fear of getting stepped on, and the psychological pressure is no joke either. If nobody comes here anymore, then the grain prices will increase like crazy, which is not a good thing. It would be better to have the intermediate heroes and the senior castle hero go and subjugate it, but Kurosaki would not want others to benefit from this. He's had his fun now, so it's time for his main objective, which is the Last Heaven dungeon. Our hero gives us a brief reintroduction as he enters the place he said he would never come to again. He is now on the second layer called Silicon Valley, which isn't too different from the first one. His main goal is to find a weapon which is strong enough to beat Jizu, because even though Astro King is a cheat class, it is basically another form of being an adventurer, so it does not grant any special combat skills on leveling up. We are told that Last Heaven has 5 layers in total, with Aurora Circuit being the highest. The Master Guardian of Silicon Valley is a giant robot named Daedalus, with whom Kurosaki has no intention of fighting. After all, his main target remains Jizu, so he will keep his eyes on the prize. Suddenly, he gets attacked, so he turns around to see some flying tanks, which makes his face squirm. Epsilon says these are magic tanks, but Kurosaki says it's stupid to just call something magical to make it able to do impossible things. Some more attacks come his way, and this time it's from a magic flak, which is like an armored insect. The battle gets ridiculous for our hero, as he feels the magic flak is all about style, energy, and good old narrative convenience. Since it has tons of guns, Kurosaki does not hesitate to call it an American-style monster. Either way, he kicks it down with one strike, and manages to take out some more of them as well. He strikes a pose at the end of this attack, but the magic tanks are still there. They continue firing at Kurosaki, and while there's enough firepower, Bro is able to dodge the attacks and show off some of his moves. Kurosaki is just flexing at this point, as he unleashes his Rising Dragon jet kick on the magic tanks. He destroys all of them and checks out the drop items. He notices a lot of circuit boards and similar objects, but it does not look like he can use them to even enhance his current weapons. The enemy shows up so often that these drops can't even be considered as rare items. Even though his storage has upgraded to hangar with 10 times the capacity, these drop items are too much and not valuable enough. There's nothing that's good for him just yet, as he already has the Cosmo gun, which surpasses the current drops. He can see a powerless refrigerator, a washing machine, and even a microwave, but he wonders if this breaks the world's themes. Epsilon explains that the Last Heaven is themed after the apocalyptic world of a mechanical civilization. The dropped items provide players with conveniences to improve their lifestyle. This is an interesting take, but how is it going to help Kurosaki? Will he be able to defeat Jizu with what he finds here? And how much can he grow his Astro level class? There's more to know, but we've come to the end of today's video for now. Like, share, and subscribe if you're thrilled to see Kurosaki back in action with his babes like Anessa, Rina, Sylvia, Suzuri, and Shinano. There's a lot more stuff going on that would make shady seem like an understatement, so show this video some love if you want to see more of him and his maid girls in action. Okay then, I'll see you in the next one with some additional chapters.